democracy. As you know, I left that party in October because it had departed so dramatically from the core values that I grew up with. It had become the party of war, censorship, corruption, big pharma, big tech, big ag, and big money. When it abandoned democracy by canceling the primary to conceal the cognitive decline of the sitting president, I left the party to run as an independent. The mainstream of American politics and journalism derided my decision. Conventional wisdom said that it would be impossible even to get on the ballot as an independent because each state poses an insurmountable tangle of arbitrary rules for collecting signatures. I would need over 1 million signatures, something no presidential candidate in history had ever achieved. And then I'd need a team of attorneys and millions of dollars to handle all the legal challenges from the DNC. The naysayers told us that we were climbing a glass version of Mount Impossible. So the first thing I want to tell you is that we proved them wrong. We did it because beneath the radar of mainstream media organs, we inspired a massive independent political movement. More than 100,000 volunteers sprang into action, hopeful that they could reverse our nation's decline. Many worked 10-hour days, sometimes in blizzards and blazing heat. They sacrificed family time, personal commitments, and sleep month after month, energized by a shared vision of a nation healed of its divisions. They set up tables at churches and farmers' markets. They canvassed door to door. In Utah and in New Hampshire, volunteers collected signatures in snowstorms, convincing each supporter to stop in the frigid cold, to take off their gloves, and to sign legibly. During a heat wave in Nevada, I met a tall, athletic volunteer who cheerfully told me that he had lost 25 pounds collecting signatures in 117-degree heat. To finance this effort, young Americans donated their lunch money, and senior citizens gave up part of their Social Security checks. Our 50-state organization collected those millions of signatures and more. No presidential campaign in American political history has ever done that. And so I want to thank all of those dedicated volunteers and congratulate the campaign staff who coordinated this enormous logistical feat. Your accomplishments were regarded as impossible. You carried me up that glass mountain. You pulled off a miracle. You achieved what all the pundits said could never be done. You have my deepest gratitude, and I'm never going to forget that, not just for what you did for my campaign, but for the sacrifices you made because you love our country. You showed everyone that democracy is still possible here. It continues to survive in the press and in the idealistic human energies that still thrive beneath a canvas of neglect and of official and institutional corruption. Today, I'm here to tell you that I will not allow your efforts to go to waste. I'm here to tell you that I will leverage your tremendous accomplishments to serve the ideals that we share, the ideals of peace, of prosperity, of freedom, of health, all the ideals that motivated my campaign. I'm here today to describe the path forward that you've opened with your commitment and with your hard labors. Now, in an honest system, I believe that I would have won the election. In a system the kind that my father and my uncles thrived in, a system with open debates, with fair primaries, with regularly scheduled debates, with fair primaries, and with a truly independent media untainted by government propaganda and censorship. In a system of nonpartisan courts and election boards, everything would be different. After all, the polls consistently showed me beating each of the other candidates, both in favorability and also in head-to-head matchups. But I'm sorry to say that while democracy may still be alive at the grassroots, it has become little more than a slogan for our political institutions, for our media, and for our government, and most sadly at all for me, for the Democratic Party. In the name of saving democracy, the Democratic Party set itself to dismantling it, lacking confidence in its candidate, that its candidate could win in a fair election at the voting booth. The DNC waged continual legal warfare against both President Trump and myself. Each time that our volunteers turned in those towering boxes of signatures needed to get on the ballot, the DNC dragged us into court, state after state, attempting to erase their work and to subvert the will of the voters who had signed those petitions. It deployed DNC-aligned judges to throw me and other candidates off the ballot and to throw President Trump in jail. It ran a sham primary that was rigged to prevent any serious challenge to President Biden. Then, when a predictably bungled debate performance precipitated the palace coup against President Biden, the same shadowy DNC operatives appointed his successor, also without an election. They installed a candidate who was so unpopular with voters that she dropped out in 2020 without winning a single delegate. My uncle and my father both relished debate. They prided themselves on their capacity to go toe-to-toe with any opponent in the battle over ideas. They would be astonished to learn of a Democratic Party presidential nominee who, like Vice President Harris, has not appeared in a single interview or an unscripted encounter with voters for 35 days. This is profoundly undemocratic. How are people to choose when they don't know whom they are choosing? And how can this look to the rest of the world? My father and my uncle were always conscious of America's image abroad because of our nation's role as the template for democracy, the role model for democratic processes, and the leader of the free world. Instead of showing us her substance and character, the DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon, well, nothing. No policies, no interviews, no debates, only smoke and mirrors and balloons in a highly produced Chicago circus. There in Chicago, a string of Democratic speakers mentioned Donald Trump 147 times just on the first day. Oh, who needs a policy when you have Trump to hate? In contrast, at the RNC convention, President Biden was mentioned only twice in 4 days. I do interviews every day. Many of you have interviewed me. Anybody who asks gets to interview me. Some days I do as many as 10. President Trump, who actually was nominated and won an election, also does interviews daily. How did the Democratic Party choose a candidate that has never done an interview or debate during the entire election cycle? We know the answers. They did it by weaponizing the government agencies. They did it by abandoning democracy. They did it by suing the opposition and by disenfranchising American voters. What most alarms me isn't how the Democratic Party conducts its internal affairs or runs its candidates. What alarms me is the resort to censorship and media control and the weaponization of the federal agencies. When a U.S. president colludes with or outright coerces media companies to censor political speech, it's an attack on our most sacred right of free expression, and that's the very right upon which all of our other constitutional rights rest. President Biden mocked Vladimir Putin's 88% landslide in the Russian elections, observing that Putin and his party controlled the Russian press, and that Putin prevented serious opponents from appearing on the ballot. But here in America, the DNC also prevented opponents from appearing on the ballot. And our television networks exposed themselves as Democratic Party organs. Over the course of more than a year, in a campaign where my poll numbers reached at times in the high 20s, the DNC-allied mainstream media networks maintain a near perfect embargo on interviews with me. During his 10-month presidential campaign in 1992, Ross Perot gave 34 interviews on mainstream networks. In contrast, during the 16 months since I declared, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, and CNN combined gave only 2 live interviews from me. Those networks instead ran a continuous deluge of hit pieces with inaccurate, often vile, pejoratives and defamatory smears. Some of those same networks and colluded with the DNC to keep me off the debate stage. Representatives of those networks are in this room right now, and I'll just take a moment to ask you to consider the many ways that your institutions have abdicated this really sacred responsibility, the duty of a free press to safeguard democracy and to challenge always the party in power. Instead of maintaining that posture of fierce skepticism toward authority, your institutions have made themselves government mouthpieces and stenographers for the organs of power. You didn't alone cause the devolution of American democracy, but you could have prevented it. The Democratic Party's censorship of social media was even more of a naked exercise of executive power. This week, a federal judge, Terry Doty, upheld my injunction against President Biden, calling the White House's censorship project, quote, the most egregious violation of the First Amendment in the history of the United States of America. Doty's previous 155-page decision details how just 37 hours after he took the oath of office, swearing to uphold the Constitution, President Biden and his White House opened up a portal and then invited the CIA, the FBI, CISA, which is a censorship agency, it's the center of the censorship industrial complex, DHS, the IRS, and other agencies to censor me and other political dissidents on social media. Even today, users who try to post my campaign videos to Facebook or YouTube get messages that this content violates community standards. 2 days after Judge Doty rendered his decision this week, Facebook was still attaching warning labels to an online petition calling on ABC to include me in the upcoming debate. They said that violates community standards, their community standards. The mainstream media was once the guardian of the First Amendment and democratic principles, and it's joined this systemic attack on democracy. It also, the media justifies their censorship on the grounds of combating misinformation, but governments and oppressors don't censor lies. They don't fear lies. They fear the truth, and that's what they censor. And I don't want any of this to sound like a personal complaint, because it's not. For me, it's all part of a journey, and it's a journey that I signed up with. But I need to make these observations because I think they're critical for us doing the thing that we need to do as citizens in a democracy to assess where we are in this country and what our democracy still looks like. And the assumptions about
This is the Macil Duncan Show. We are playing live. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is succeeding from the presidential race and is about to endorse Donald Trump.
Or have we made it, a kind of a joke? And here's the good news. While mainstream outlets denied me a critical platform, they didn't shut down my ideas, which have especially flourished among young voters and independent voters, thanks to the alternative media. Many months ago, I promised the American people that I would withdraw from the race if I became a spoiler. A spoiler is someone who will alter the outcome of the election but has no chance of winning. In my heart, I no longer believe that I have a realistic path to electoral victory in the face of this relentless systematic censorship and media control. So I cannot in good conscience ask my staff and volunteers to keep working their long hours or ask my donors to keep giving when I cannot honestly tell them that I have a real path to the White House. Furthermore, our polling consistently showed that by staying on the ballot in the battleground states, I would likely hand the election over to the Democrats, with whom I disagree on the most existential issues: censorship, war, and chronic disease. Oh, I want everyone to know that I am not terminating my campaign. I am simply suspending it and not ending it. My name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me. And if enough of you do vote for me, and neither of the major party candidates win 270 votes, which is quite possible. In fact, today our polling shows them tying at 269 to 269. And I could conceivably still end up in the White House in a contingent election. But in about 10 battleground states where my presence would be a spoiler, I'm going to remove my name. And I've already started that process and urge voters not to vote for me. It's with a sense of victory and not defeat that I'm suspending my campaign activities. Not only did we do the impossible by collecting 1 million signatures, we changed the national political conversation forever. Chronic disease, free speech.
Now this is Robert Kennedy Jr. He's removing his name from ballots in the battleground states. And some said he was going to endorse Trump. He hasn't yet, so we'll see. But he excoriated the Democratic Party. If you go back to listen to the beginning of this speech, I'm going to just listen a little while longer and we'll get on with the show.
Persuaded me to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent, and now to throw my support to President Trump. The causes were free speech, the war in Ukraine, and the war on our children. I've already described some of my personal experiences and struggles with the government's censorship industrial complex. I want to say a word about the Ukraine war. The military industrial complex has provided us with a familiar comic book justification like they do on every.
Well, that is Robert Kennedy Jr., and if you haven't already gathered, he is suspending his campaign, and he said he's going to remain on the ballots in certain states, but in the battleground states, he wants his name removed because he said, I quote, "I don't want to be a spoiler and help Harris and Walz win when they were not democratically chosen by the people. They were basically installed, if you will, by a deep state group." Very interesting there. I'm sure there'll be lots of reporting on today, and I'll try to catch maybe some highlights later in the show. But as he first started out there, the thing is that he was going to endorse Trump. What he has said is that in the battleground states, he's encouraged you to pick Donald Trump over Kamala. Interesting. It's kind of like a half endorsement. I don't know. But anyway, hope you guys are having a good day. This is the Macil Duncan Show, live here from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm on the MacilDuncanRadio.com and also USAHeartbeat.com. StreetLevelAmerica.com, DestinyLifeMedia.com, the SGM Alabama Radio Network, the New Jersey Freedom Network, Tennessee Conservatism, and the God in Politics platform. And we appreciate those at Revolve Media out in Indiana that promotes the show. So lots of opportunities. Hope you guys are having it. It's a Friday, and today I have two special guests. I have one calling in from Turning Point USA. Samantha and I are kind of new friends. She took the place of Nicole, the former representative for Turning Point USA here in Tennessee. And I just thought I'd take time to, at 4 o'clock, when she calls in, to introduce you to one of the newest members of Turning Point USA. And we sponsored one of the biblical citizenship classes at our church, and it was a good blessing. And so I hope you guys would consider doing that at your church or faith group. My buddy Doug Henshaw came and saw a little bit of ours. He hosted one in East Tennessee at his church. It's a wonderful education. Things that you probably never were taught in school that are actual facts about this founding of our country. So it's just a thought for you. So anyway, moving along. Let's see, got a couple of things here. I thought I'd go ahead and jump into a shocker roober. Evidently, there's been a change of heart in Georgia. Believe it or not, there's a changing of the heart. Rhino Governor Brian Kemp officially ends feud with Trump and vows to support him back to the White House. Trump responds. Now this is, he was on Hannity last night. The governor, Brian Kemp, has finally put an end to his long-standing feud with former President Donald Trump. Kemp, who infamously betrayed Trump in the aftermath of the 2020 election, now appears to be scrambling to save his political career by pledging his support to Trump's 2024 campaign. Interesting. During his time in office, Kemp has repeatedly alienated the Republican base, making decisions that aligned more closely with the interest of the establishment, or the rhinos, or the uniparty, if you will. From his controversial handling of the 2020 election to his lukewarm approach to protecting conservative principles, Kemp's record is a far cry from the America First agenda that Trump and his supporters hold dear. AKA, reading between the lines, do you think this guy's going to run for president one day and he knows he has no snowball chance in hell without Trump's endorsement for a second time? I don't see it happening. Anyway. During his time in office, Kemp has repeatedly alienated the Republican base, making decisions that aligned him, like I said. So, however, during his appearance on Sean Hannity's show on Fox News, Kemp has now thrown his full support behind Trump's 2024 presidential bid. During the interview, Kemp emphasized the importance of focusing on the future and ensuring that Trump wins Georgia in the upcoming election. Now, that's a shocker-roober. That is a shocker-roober. Let me just read you two quotes. Hannity said this: I know all that you are doing in Georgia, honestly. I know also that it's working. I can see that it's working. The betting markets in Georgia. Maybe people didn't notice, for example, shows that you have gone all to get every Republican on the ticket, including Donald Trump, elected. The odds of Trump winning have jumped from below 50% to 64% as of today. I want to contribute that success to you, your operation, that is second to none. I don't know why he's buttering up to Kemp unless he thinks Kemp is going to do something for him. Well, Kemp, we got to win. We got to win from the top of the ticket down. I've been saying consistently for a long time we cannot afford another 4 years. So this is going to be interesting. This is my daughter Shayna calling in. Shayna, what's up? Live on the radio.
Oh, never mind. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, when you call 3 times, I'm going to answer. So anyway, Kemp, we got to win. We've got to win for the top of the ticket on down. I've been saying consistently for a long time we cannot afford another 4 years of Joe Biden. I don't remember him saying that. Anyway, we need to send Donald Trump back to the White House. We need to retake the Senate. I got to be honest with you. What happened? Has Kemp gotten saved? Has somebody evangelized the governor of dissent and iniquity? Because you know the song says the devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal. And many of us thought it was Kip's soul that he stole. Interesting. I'm still baffled, but way to go, Idaho. I hope it works out. But Axios says this: Georgia county election boards could become the 2024 battleground. This may be what it's all about. Because you heard, if you were listening at the beginning of the show, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said there's a chance in some of the likely matchups that this could come down to a draw, 269-269, meaning you need 270 to win. That would put the hands of the election in the hands of Congress. Okay, and the interesting thing is Kamala Harris, a candidate for president, as vice president, would oversee the Electoral College and have a hand in that. That sounds like it's not a fair situation. But a steady stream of bureaucratic rule changes in Georgia is creating a framework that election deniers could use to delay the certification of presidential election results come November. Why it matters. Former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris know that the road to the White House runs through Georgia. The new rules could help cast doubt and fan flames of suspicion on the democratic process. Now, Axios, this is a liberal news agency. So for Axios to sound this nervous, it must be good news for Trump. But let's read on. Driving the news in recent months, MAGA and GOP activists have helped push the state's election board's Republican appointees to approve what they market as common sense measures. So we'll see what that is. Yes, but in reality, election officials, progressive activists say, now when progressives are upset, my day is made. Okay, so the progressives are upset. This must be good news. Progressives say the changes are not warranted. Does that mean you can't say there's a pipe leak in Atlanta and then all of a sudden evacuate the building and have two ladies pull out suitcases of ballots and run them in like 10 times for your candidate? Why? Georgia, you guys, you owe the nation, if not the world, an apology. You threw that election, and it cost the White House and all these wars, all this stuff that's gone on in Israel, all the conflict with Hamas, all the money that's gone to Ukraine. It could go back, if you want to get real ticky, back to freaking Georgia. And Kemp, you, sir, and Rafflesberger should be held responsible, not rewarded. I'm glad you're having this late hour salvation moment for Trump. It's a little late, my friend. I hope Georgia has a good memory and never votes either one of them in for nothing again. Maybe dog catcher. Let them pick up poo in the park. That's about it. So, the dark side behind the election industrial complex is uncovered in the Gateway Pundit. Now, this is an interesting story here, and we'll pick it up when we come back. This is the Macil Duncan Show on the Macil Duncan Radio Network with others.
Hi, this is Renee for the Republic. StarSpangled.com, a mission to awaken souls and help save America, headquartered in the South. I recommend the Macil Duncan Radio Show because, as a former news journalist, I know how important it is to find credible sources in today's world gone mad. Join Macil Duncan on his show and me on social media such as Facebook at Star Spangled Chick to find out why loving and protecting America has never been more vital in the history of the USA.
WVMG Chattanooga. Jesus said, "You do it unto the least of these, and it's as if you were doing it unto me." There are many hungry people in our communities. The Appleton Food Bank feeds over 3,000 people every month, and they could use your prayers. In these troubling times, the number of clients they are serving is increasing. You can make a donation today. Go online to AppletonBaptist.com. AppletonBaptist.com. Food drives, prayers, financial donations, all help. They have rented 2 old grocery stores. They're open 7 days a week for donations, and they distribute every Monday and Friday. The motto at Appleton Baptist Church is taking Jesus as he is to people as they are. And you can get involved and help feed the hungry. Go to the website, AppletonBaptist.com. You know, there is someone hungry in your world tonight. So as you're seated tonight at your dinner table, enjoying the mashed potato and steak off the barbecue grill, remember that there are many people in our communities, in our world, that are not as fortunate as you are. So please consider donating your time, funds, and food to your local food bank or food pantry. And as you enjoy the barbecue tonight, please remember them. Check on the widows, elderly, and the orphans as well. You can donate in the Appleton, Tennessee area to Appleton Baptist Church. They have a food pantry there that would love your support. And there are many food pantries all over America. We need to feed this nation in more ways than one, but one way that we can literally feed them is with food. Get involved and make a difference. Do you love God and do you love America? If you do, you're going to love this radio show, the Macil Duncan Radio Show, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m. Right here at Destiny Life Media, 96.9 FM. You can also hear the show live and archives of the show at streetlevelamerica.com and usaheartbeat.com. Also hear it at MacilDuncanRadio.com, Rumble, X, Truth Social, Facebook, and more. And we're working on growing the show nationwide. The Patriot Pastor of Appleton Baptist Church, he is Macil Duncan on the Macil Duncan Radio Show.
While the war in the Middle East continues to rage on, Iran is actively interfering in the U.S. presidential election. The FBI, along with other intelligence agencies, confirmed the country recently targeted both the Trump and Harris campaigns, gaining access to Trump's tickets, systems, and internal communication servers. Experts warn this kind of meddling will continue, and as national security correspondent Caitlin Burke reports, they predict the Trump campaign will remain the primary target.
Our adversaries believe there are election outcomes that favor them, and that's why they interfere.
The FBI describes Iran's activity as increasingly aggressive during this election cycle, and former intelligence official Michael Pregent tells CBN News that's likely because the Islamic regime believes a win by Kamala Harris is in its best interest.
I just think our adversaries are not really worried about this administration, but they are hearing tough language from the Trump campaign. So with regards to a terrorist attack, there's no reason to conduct one because that would only help Trump. When it comes to an email hack on the DNC, that would only help Trump as well. So I would think that our adversaries will continue to push disinformation and misinformation into our social media.
Microsoft first reported news of this targeted hacking against the Trump campaign and announced their techs have also uncovered election interference attempts from Russia and China.
We should get to a place where our adversaries fear a Democrat president and a Republican president, but now they tend to pick the racehorse.
So interesting enough, Iran sees Donald Trump as a threat and has been, according to the the intelligence community, they have admitted that the Trump campaign, there was an attempt to hack them, and they're from Iran. So if that's the case, there must be something going on in the upcoming election that's got some people rattled. You got Governor Kemp from Georgia going on the Hannity show last night, kind of doing a deep apology, if you will, and saying he now fully supports Donald Trump. There's got to be something in the water that's uniting people, and even having Kennedy, a Democrat who is running as an independent, holding a press conference and saying, hey, I think we need to support Donald Trump because he said, and so did his VP, we cannot have a Kamala Harris-Walz presidency. The three things that I picked out of what Kennedy said in his speech, and it's still going, I just went and checked. He's on a roll. He said he can't support his party, the Democratic Party, that his father and his uncle both were assassinated for freedom, that this party does not have the ability to have a candidate that's chosen by the people. And he said they had an opportunity to allow Biden to be primaried. They said they knew all along his health was deteriorating. So why pull the move now, only because he had a poor showing against Trump? He said that, and I got to agree. Secondly, he said with Kamala Harris being just appointed without being voted, she has no proven track record of victory. As far as presidential goes, she was the first to pull out in 2020 with no delegates. So there's no evidence that the people truly have voted and liked her. And thirdly, he mentions how the media has allowed her to slip without doing one interview, without encouraging her to do more debates, and how she has been allowed. Because if you notice, the one debate she has agreed to do is after early voting has begun. They're wanting a lot of folks to buy the hype, buy all the flim-flam. For instance, last night there was supposed to be some special superstar guest at the DNC, and people thought, was it Taylor Swift or Beyonce? One even floated the rumor it might be President Bush coming to talk against his own party. But nothing happened. See, that's the problem with the Harris and Walz candidacy. It's thrown together so fast, and even the agenda they passed out at the convention had Biden on it. They didn't have time to change and put Kamala on it as the candidate. So it goes to show there's panic in the air. There's something going on. And with that said, you're seeing GOP people like Kemp and others acquiescing towards Trump. It even has NBC News a little bit rattled because I can't believe he said this on air. Joe Scarborough just said on air yesterday that illegal immigrants, if they vote, that's illegal. It's against the federal law.
A follow-up question, again, forgive me for being slow here. But
hey, guys.
I'm sorry, we can't forgive you, Mr. Joe Scarborough. You are a liar, and you have been such a manipulator. But this is the Rubin Report. Here's Mr. Rubin, and he goes on to explain how Scarborough gave us a truth moment, which is very rare.
I'm off the grid for August, but good for Joe Scarborough, still got the job.
the House Freedom Caucus is actually pushing for a short-term government funding bill before an October 1st deadline, and the group is asking GOP leaders to adopt a continuing resolution that would fund the government until early next year. But the group's also demanding the stopgap measure to include a provision that would expand proof of citizenship requirements to vote in federal elections. With us now, NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor. Sahil, looks like some Republicans are angling for the possibility of a shutdown to get this issue in front of voters. But I've been confused about this from the very start. This bill, I'm sorry, but isn't it illegal for illegal immigrants to vote? This bill, I'm sorry, but isn't it illegal? Isn't it illegal? Isn't it illegal? Isn't it illegal for illegal immigrants to vote? Isn't it illegal for illegal immigrants to vote in elections? I'm not exactly sure what point they're trying to. I'm not being facetious, but
yeah, you are. You are pretty much trying to pretend like you all believe you obey the laws when you know your party And I'm going to be interested to see how Jack responds to this. We have Democrat congressional candidate Jack Allen, who's going to be on the show 5 to 6 today. And I'm just going to ask him, Jack, if you're listening, I'm sure you're doing some prep work, how you handle, one, Kennedy backing Trump, and secondly, what Joe Scarborough just said. It's illegal for illegals to vote. Yet your party's the party of open borders, and you're trying to get all these folks driver's license, and they're getting voter registration cards at the border. I mean, you can't have it both ways. You can't pretend, you can't call it illegal, but then be doing it behind the scenes, because that's illegal. Interesting, is it not? Now, Texas AG is investigating claims of nonprofits registering non-citizens to vote. Check this out.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has announced an investigation into claims that organizations in the state might be unlawfully registering non-citizens to vote. Paxton's investigation follows an undercover operation by his election integrity unit. They reportedly found nonprofit groups posted outside Texas Department of Public Safety offices offering voter registration assistance to people there for driver's licenses or ID cards.
Now, wait a minute. Joe Scarborough said that's illegal. But they're doing it.
Paxton questions why these groups are needed since voters already have the chance to register.
Yeah, these are nonprofit groups targeting illegal aliens getting driver's license and setting up free registration booths outside. Why would you allow someone that's not a citizen to register to vote if you know it's illegal, Mr. Joe Scarborough?
Inside of DPS offices. Paxton says Texans are deeply troubled by the possibility that organizations purporting to assist with voter registration are illegally registering non-citizens to vote in our elections. If eligible citizens can legally register to vote when conducting their business at a DPS office, why would they need a second opportunity to register with a booth outside? In Texas, a person who lies about their citizenship on voter registration forms can spend up to 180 days in jail and face fines up to $10,000. It's also illegal in the state of Texas to help non-citizens register to vote. Those who do face up to 20 years in prison and a $10,000 fine.
Has anyone ever gone to jail for this? I'm just curious. All these laws on the book make you feel like, woohoo! Does anyone ever enforce them? Because if they did, I don't think folks would feel so bold as setting up a pup tent outside of a driver's license office to register folks. You know, if I'm not mistaken, when you go to get a driver's license, that property is state property. Savvy? So if you are on state property doing an illegal action or an attempt, you should be arrested. Don't tell me there's not security cameras checking this stuff out.
Non-citizen voting has become a partisan issue heading into the November presidential election. Congressional Republicans introduced the SAVE Act in the House, which would require voters in the U.S. to provide proof of citizenship in order to cast a ballot. The GOP-led House passed the bill, but the Senate never voted on the proposal, with a majority of Democrats, including President Biden, opposed to the idea.
How many times, you guys want to beat up on Mike Johnson, but how many times have they passed something and Chuck Schumer refuses to even bring it up? See, that's the problem. It's sad, but you almost need a red wave. You're going to need full Republican control of the House and the Senate if you want to see anything move. Or, sadly, you're going to need a blue wave. Because when one controls one house and one controls the other, they very rarely move together unless it's something to enrich themselves, like money to the Ukraine. Just saying. Just saying. So, just, I don't know what you guys think. A lot of crazy stuff going on. Going back to these reports, CNN commentator Biden-Harris ran U.S. off into a ditch. This is interesting for a CNN reporter to say this. CNN political commentator Scott Jennings who served as a former presidential George Bush special assistant, as well as his deputy director of political affairs, stated that Biden-Harris administration ran the country off into a ditch, adding, "You cannot leave the same people in charge." Now, he's on CNN, but he's more than likely their conservative puppet. They always pick one or two. But it's interesting how, you ever heard the term birds of a feather flock together? Or you lay down with dogs, you're going to get fleas. You hang with monkeys, you'll swing from trees. The more you're around someone, the more you act like them or they embrace you. I mean, you look at The View. Every time they put a conservative voice on there, they would start off like gangbusters. But after a few cocktails and a little, hey, let's be friends, Whoopi and them would always dilute them into being more of a moderate, calm down voice, and they've lost the edge because they were tired, I guess, of being outnumbered. Well, then you have same thing in political world, but look at Robert Steele, who used to be the GOP. Remember, he used to be over the GOP party, campaign manager. Now, listen to him on CNN. You would think he was a lip-lock liberal all his life. They've completely converted the soul. He never talks positive about the Republican Party or conservatism. That makes you wonder. When he ran the GOP, was he just a wolf in sheep's clothing? Kind of like Ronna McDaniel. Who do you trust today? Who is for real? Just because someone says they're Republican or Democrat, I don't know if that label is enough anymore. Are you an American? Do you love this country? Because there's another problem we have. Dual citizenship. Many of our congressional and our senators have become dual citizens. Now, the last check I did, 79% of the congressional and Senate were dual citizens. Why would you need to have a citizenship of another country if you're serving this country? Well, 3 reasons come to mind. One, it's because you can hide your money better. Second, you can claim diplomatic immunity at times if the legal people come after you. And thirdly, it's probably to make deals in other countries that benefit you and your business or whatever your brand is. See, everyone goes after Biden because he has 257 bank accounts and all the him and Hunter supposedly all the shady dealings that they had with all these companies, but they had no brand. Trump had Trump Towers. He had casinos. He sold Trump ties, Trump steaks. He had brands. He had things he actually sold to make his money. The Bidens have nothing. The only thing we know that they have is an island, much like Epstein Island. It's 4 miles up the coast, and it supposedly has the same activities as it did on Epstein Island. There's actually 12 of those sex islands, if you will, that surround the northern continent. And Epstein was just the one that gets the most attention. But no one knows names. The books are all silent. See, once you're in that club, it's like secrecy to the max. I think that's why they hate Trump. Trump was in the club, and he I guess he did mutiny, if you will. He did treason to the upper class. I've shared this before. If you go look at all the things that went down in New York. We're past a break. We got to go. I'll be right back.
Hi, this is Rhonda Tate. I'm from Chickamauga, Georgia. And I love listening to your show because you tell all the truth. And you're God-fearing and God-loving man. And I also love the Lord. And thank you for all that you do. I appreciate it.
WVMG Chattanooga. We are growing better together all the time. Those are the words of Dr. Steve Ball of Metro Tabernacle Church in Chattanooga, Tennessee. One of the ways that they grow is with life groups. It's very important for you to get connected in a small group so you can develop relationships and hold each other accountable. Dr. Ball says they believe that Metro Tab is growing larger and smaller at the same time. Life groups are an important part in developing relationships with others who share your interests and are dealing with similar life issues. Why don't you get connected? Check out life groups and the many other offerings at Metro Tabernacle Church in Chattanooga, Tennessee. They want to be involved in your life. The address is 2101 West Shepherd Road, just off Highway 153 at the airport exit. It is time for the Church of Jesus Christ to roar. That is one of the core principles of Metro Tabernacle Church in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Their mission is to restore the roar in the body of Christ by establishing a foundation of faith in the Word of God through the power and demonstration of His Holy Spirit. They will reclaim the original intent of God for the church through training, equipping, releasing believers, and raising up leaders who will carry the roar of the Lion of the tribe of Judah to build strong local churches. And we all need that. You can find out more information by going to their website, myroar.org. Metro Tabernacle Church is located at 2101 West Shepherd Road, at the airport exit off of Highway 153 in Chattanooga. Let's roar. It is time for Christians to roar, to make a difference in the community. That is the belief of Metro Tabernacle Church and Dr. Steve Ball. They have the School of Roar. The School of Roar is hosting a Summer 2024 The Prophetic. Classes open to everyone, and registration is free. Do you want to learn how to work more in the prophetic? Attend one of the class schedules. Registration deadline June 2nd. There will be a class Tuesday, June 18th at 6:30 p.m. and one again July 16th at 6:30 p.m. You can register at the website metrotab.net or myroar.org. That is myroar.org. It is time for the church to roar.
Saturday, NASA is set to decide whether Boeing's new capsule is safe enough to bring 2 astronauts home after they've been stranded at the International Space Station since June. Once Saturday's meeting between NASA Administrator Bill Nelson and other top agency officials is over, an announcement on the decision is expected from Houston. In June, Boeing's Starliner launched astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams to the ISS. The test flight quickly encountered thruster failures and helium leaks, so serious that NASA kept the capsule parked at the station as engineers debated what to do. SpaceX could go get the astronauts, but that would potentially keep them up there until next February. They were supposed to return after only a week or so at the ISS. If NASA decides SpaceX is the way to go, the Starliner would return to Earth empty in September. If NASA decides Starliner is safe, they'll fly home much sooner, likely within the next month. Keep up to date on.
So we got astronauts in space, and many of us remember some of the space parody shows growing up. But the interesting thing is Christian astronauts lean on their faith while stranded in space. What this secular news left out, but CBN News is reporting, both astronauts evidently believe in Jesus.
NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore and test pilot Suni Williams should have returned from their mission weeks ago. But engine failure has prevented that. As fellow Christians pray for their safety, Wilmore, longtime church elder, and Williams both have the important treasure of faith with them in outer space.
Facing the unknown, both NASA and its stranded crew are checking and double-checking all options so they can get home. but the crew is currently stranded.
So we are finding stuff and we're correcting it and making changes, making updates with our control team.
One rescue possibility, the Boeing Starliner is on hold due to thruster failures.
Did you notice that word, Boeing? Boeing is the group that has all the airlines issues. Boeing is the group that Trump had to, when he first came to office, to negotiate because they were overcharging the government. Boeing is the group that bailed out Nikki Haley when she was bankrupt, gave her a job, and supported her campaign against Trump. Boeing also makes military equipment and is part of the military complex. And Boeing, once again, not only does it have failure with airplanes, failure with presidential candidates, but it also seems to have failure in space. Just want to include that.
And helium leaks. NASA Chief Astronaut Joe Acaba says the team continues to search for answers, but
I do want to put this into perspective. If Butch and Sunny do not come home on Starliner and they are kept aboard the station, they will have about 8 months on orbit,
which means no likely return until next year. Acaba says there's just not enough insight or data to make a clear decision. Still, he's confident Wilmore and Williams' experience on board the spaceship will keep them safe. Apart from the human logic, in the midst of this uncertainty, both have an invaluable asset.
Faith in the life of an astronaut is eminently important. They are dealing and working with things that the rest of us cannot necessarily wrap our heads around.
Pastor Wenzel Pawlowski leads St. Paul the Apostle Catholic Church in Texas. He's had at least 36 parishioners who were once astronauts, even gifting one with blessings from the altar to serve as a reminder that God is always near.
The Blessed Sacrament is inside that Luna, which Mike Good took with him into outer space. He brought it back so it could be used here every day of the week.
At St. Paul, Pawlowski and his parishioners know the importance of praying over every space mission.
We are connected in an absolutely fascinating way with what goes on in the...
Now, the only thing is, he doesn't say what their faith's in. So I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but, you know, I wanted to hear the J word, Jesus. Didn't hear that, but anyway, so we've got that going on. New government reports links to fluoride drinks in water could be a problem for young people. We'll bring that to you as that is, I think, always an important topic for parents. They want to know, hey, what's this going on to fluoride drinking water? And it could lower your IQ. Check it out.
A new U.S. government report shows fluoride in drinking water can be linked with lower IQ in children. However, that's when it's found at twice the recommended limit. Researchers with the Department of Health and Human Services analyzed previously published research and said they determined, quote, with moderate confidence that there is a link between higher levels of fluoride exposure and lower IQ in kids. While the report was not designed to evaluate the health effects of fluoride in drinking water alone, it's a striking acknowledgement of a potential neurological risk from high levels of fluoride. Fluoride strengthens teeth and reduces cavities by replacing minerals lost during normal wear and tear. Adding low levels of fluoride to drinking water is considered one of the most impactful public health achievements of the last century. After studying reports from 6 different countries, HHS researchers found drinking water that has more than 1.5 milligrams of fluoride per liter can be consistently linked to lower IQs in kids.
Okay, who has time to measure that? I don't know. You know, it's just like people would tell you eating chocolate caused cancer back in the day. Then they say, no, it's good for you. They flip-flop on all these studies, if you will. But the fluoride and the water. Now, many folks, I've got a lot of my young families that do a lot of research. They don't want their kids vaccinated, etc. But a lot of them say, well, I don't want my kid taking or using toothpaste with fluoride in it. So do your own research. I don't know how you're supposed to actually do all that measuring that it is the healthy level versus the unhealthy. I guess you need to get a fluoride meter type thing. I don't have one. Well, good news, if you're trying to sell your home, evidently there's been a little pickup in the market.
After a 4-month slump, sales of previously occupied homes finally picked up in July. Lower mortgage rates and a rising number of homes on the market appear to have encouraged more home shoppers to make a move. However, the increased supply did not help to cool home prices, and sales are still down 2.5% from this time last year. Although the numbers came in slightly above expectations from economists, the market remains cautious. Home prices have been steadily increasing for 13 consecutive months. The national median sales price climbed 4.1% from last year, reaching more than $400,000 in July.
I've got actually three friends that sold their house during that peak time, thinking, hey, we're going to make all this money. And this one couple, they sold their house for more than double what they paid for it. They paid off all their debts, but then they found themselves unable to buy a house of similar value. Because, see, the prices had gone up all around them, so they had a nice 2-story house, big garage, nice land. By the time they pay off their debt and went to rebuy, it's like shabam. They could only rent a house half the size. And it's not been the best journey for them. Another family that sold all that they had, thinking it was going to be a better thing, it ended up costing them. They are, again, not in a home, they're in a trailer. And then another person that I know sold their house, made all that money, ended up moving in with the in-laws. So be careful. Yeah, you can sell your house and maybe make some money, but don't forget you got to then turn around and buy a house. Savvy? That's the sad thing with a lot of this this stuff that happens in our country here in America. They push you for the big bang, the big cha-ching, not making you think, okay, how is this going to affect 10 months, a year down the road? It may not be worth the big cha-ching right now because it's going to cost me a whole lot more down the road. Just a little. I'm not the super duper financial guy here, but just thought I'd throw that personal observation out. This is kind of good news. Disney having problems again. I love to hear that Disney has problems because of their perverted ways. But Disney, after a failed attempt to launch again, after Bob Iger, they brought him back twice. Will third time be the charm? I don't know.
Disney is tapping someone with Succession experience to imagine its Bob Iger-less future. No, that experience has nothing to do with HBO and the wildly popular show called Succession. No Waystar Royco on his resume. Disney named board member and Morgan Stanley executive chairman James Gorman to chair its succession planning committee. And let's be honest here, the situation at Disney has been nearly as messy as that of Waystar Royco. For a bit of history, Iger served as CEO of Walt Disney from 2005 to 2020. He handpicked Bob Chapek to be his successor, but after a series of missteps and weak performance, Chapek was fired in 2022. And Iger came back to save the day like a hero in one of those Disney-produced Marvel films.
We've had conversations about it being much more challenging than I expected. I felt that from the beginning when I came back. But I'm not daunted by it. It's just a lot more work.
Gorman is no stranger to tough tasks. He took over as CEO of Morgan Stanley in 2010 as the bank was reeling from the financial crisis.
Some people run towards the fire, if you will, to put it out, and some people run away. And my instinct has always been to move towards where the drama is.
Gorman served in the role until the end of 2023 and oversaw the succession process at the investment bank as Ted Pick took over. Gorman saw his role much different than Iger, who stayed involved with Disney even after Chapek took the post.
It starts with a very basic principle. Do you, as the boss, want to leave the job? And I did, unambiguously. I loved it, but I wanted to stop it. But what that does is it frees you up to ensure your successor has every opportunity to succeed.
Instead, Iger was accused of undermining Chapek at every turn. With Iger back in business, Disney survived a proxy board this year with activist investor Nelson Peltz. Peltz took issue with the company's succession handling and its lackluster performance in streaming. Iger's contract extends through...
And why is it lackluster performance in streaming? because a lot of us have boycotted Disney. Because Disney keeps putting out all their sexual perverted cartoons and movies, and pridefully says so, that we're here, we're queer, and blah, blah, blah. Well, fine. But you need to understand, you boldly put crap in our face, we will wipe our face and never look again. I encourage you to still keep the Disney boycott on, my conservative friends. Do not be fooled, because Disney's had a history of this. If you guys remember the movie The Rookie with Dennis Quaid, that movie was an appealing attempt towards conservatives because the boycott prior to that had worked, and it brought Disney to its knees. I remember my kids were little at the time, and Disney products were marked less than 50% off. They couldn't sell their stuff. The Christian community was boycotting Disney. Well, they made the movie The Rookie and several other family-friendly movies with no queer stuff, no DEI crap. It was all just a flat-out good drama, and people said, hey, Disney has seen the error of their ways. No, they did not. They just slightly started getting more sneaky and slipping in the agenda that most folks don't want. And then you start going to the park, and they started having the queer pride days, but they wouldn't announce them. So you and your family had previously bought hundreds of dollars worth of tickets, lodging, etc., and you show up to naked men or half-naked men strutting through the park. What do you do? So again, the boycott was on like Donkey Kong. And I remember when the Southern Baptist Convention was there in Florida, there was a deal they were trying to work out with the Southern Baptist Convention. At that time used to draw in 40,000 people, and they were hoping to make a deal with Disney. Disney reneged on the deal. Not only that, they said, we really don't care if you Christians come to the park, so we didn't go. And it was 2 years later, again, Disney was doing a financial failure. So I encourage you to understand this. When you understand, they don't change. Disney only understands one thing: bottom line profits. And the only way to get their attention is boycott, boycott, boycott. Don't even buy their crap when it's on sale. I wouldn't buy a single thing. I wouldn't get your daughters used to any of that Disney princess stuff, because it's nothing but it's a trap. Because they don't seem to learn the error of the way. Disney's going to need to either go financially bankrupt, and I think they need to go completely defunct, and maybe another group can come in. And so if you say, poor Walt Disney will roll over in his grave, oh no, he would not. Go watch the movie Fantasia that Walt Disney put out, and it was then banned because of its lewdness. Walt Disney was no saint, my friend. That's all I'll say on the matter. Got to get ready for some breaks because I've got Samantha calling in from Turning Point USA, and pretty excited about that. And I was noticing here that there's been a little bit of a revival among students, and this was to me pretty interesting, because to hear that students were receiving Christ, thousands of them. This was an interesting story. See what you think about this. Thousands of students are coming to Jesus at public schools. Shabammer.
That's amazing. God is on the move in a big way in public schools.
What made you want to follow Jesus?
Couldn't live in my sin no more, man.
I just wanted to become like a better person.
I wasn't believing, and then I heard your speech, and it kind of moved me in a way. I decided to dedicate my life to Christ.
If you're surprised by this, just wait, because these are only a few examples of a massive movement of evangelism that's happening at hundreds of schools across the country and around the world. If you made that decision for the first time today, I want you to stand up. Oh, and it's completely legal. But at public schools, it's only legal if it's student-led. That's why right now, Christian students everywhere are stepping up to reach their schools with the gospel.
So student-led. I was a youth pastor for 18 years, and I saw some great things. Every church I was at, I was blessed. It more than doubled, and I've been invited. There's going to be a First Baptist Pearland reunion. I saw the Facebook page. They invited me. And the First Baptist Cary in North Carolina is coming up soon. A lot of my youth, we used to do some great things. Saw hundreds of kids go to ministry. But one of the things I was most proud of was when I was in Texas, we started small groups. And one of the things I thought was very electric was when I started teaching kids how to lead their peers. And because the school system there in Houston, Texas, was pretty putrid. It was very radical. It was DEI early before DEI was more famous. And the few Christians in the school were having trouble. There were kids literally having sex under the table in the lunchroom, and kids were gathered around cheering them on, clapping. Can you imagine your child in a lunchroom watching kids? Sometimes it was not normal sex, sometimes it was same sex, full nudity in a public school. I'm pausing to let that sink in, how raw and wrong that is. The teachers were afraid to do something because the kids would threaten lawsuits. What happened? I came in as youth pastor. The year before that happened, we started prayer groups. We started talking about the Word. And I taught my kids, I said, I want you to do something. I want you to take a Bible to class one day a week, you and a friend, and just open it. You don't need any flyers. You don't need to say, hey, we're starting a Bible club. Just open your Bible, read, and ask the power of the Spirit to move and bring kids to you. We started that with 12 students in 3 different high schools. We ended up averaging 500 to 700 kids a week in those groups, student-led. I would give them a little instruction, a little advice, but they led the discussions. And one kid, John Lyons, he was the magnet man for Jesus. He started a group, and it got to well over 30, and his buddy Keith Smith was in it. So Keith took half the group, and John took the other half. John blew it up. The football coach calls me. Says, Macil, could you come up here to school? I need to talk to you. So I go up there to the Pearland High School. I said, what's up, coach? He says, so what you know, I know what's going on. I said, what's going on? He goes, your kids are making a spiritual impact, and I want you to know I like it. I said, well, cool. He goes, you can use my office anytime, and I'll cover your back. If you ever need to lead a kid to Christ or have a moment in counseling, just know I'm here for you. And then other teachers. See, sometimes public school teachers, there's some good public school teachers out there. I want you to hear me say that. Sometimes they just need to know they're not on an island alone. No one wants to be Gilligan. Nobody wants to be out there with a skipper all by themselves with no way off the island. What they want to know is there anyone that will cover their back and do a lifeline to them? If the public school teacher in your area knew that they're Christian and knew your church and your faith community would pray for them, support them, and be there for them, expect them to do more of the Christian duty and opening up their classrooms and helping with student-led opportunities. Now, one way to do that, FCA, I'm a big fan of FCA, always have been. Students for Christ, or the different groups there with that. But the Turning Point USA, we'll talk with Samantha here when she calls in here at the 4 o'clock hour. They've got some literature. The Moms for America, Marie Wagner, who's on every Wednesday, she'll tell you Moms for America, they've got literature. There's a lot of parachurch organizations out there. What you need, though, is someone to get it together and say, listen, we're going to move on these situations. Because let me tell you, the homosexual and the LGBTQ and the transgender, they are evangelizing your kids. They have no fear. They feel like I'm going to say whatever I want, do whatever I want in that school, and I double dog dare you to stop me. Christians seem to go, I'm afraid. Romans 1:16, my friend, I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. It's the power of God unto salvation. We don't quiver. We don't quake. We stand tall. That's what we're called to do. That's one reason I didn't shut my church down during COVID. I told my church, this is our time to shine. When everyone else hides their head or goes under a bushel, I'm going to let it shine, my friend. Like the song says. We'll be back at the 4 o'clock hour after this break. This is the Macil Duncan Show live from Chattanooga.
Hi, this is Rob Mitchell, Rutherford County Assessor of Property, and I love to listen to the Macil Duncan Show because it's one of the few places that actually tells the citizens the truth about what's happening in their community and in America. I know that when I listen to Macil's show, I'm hearing the truth, and I'm hearing an honest man give an honest opinion. Thank you, and God bless you.
WVMG Chattanooga, 917society.com, led by Joni Bryan from Nashville, funds the National Education Order 108447 in 1959 that declared Constitution Day in public schools, and that's something we sorely need. More than 1 million kids last year got a free copy of the Constitution, and this year's goal is 2 million kids. Imagine that. The Constitution in the hands of 2 million American kids. On September 17th, all public schools are to distribute and educate students on the Constitution of the United States. If you'd like to help out, 917, that's 917society.com, led by Joni Bryan of Nashville, Tennessee. And remember, the goal this year, 2 million copies of the Constitution in kids' hands. And you can help. Again, the website, 917society.com. Jesus said, "You do it unto the least of these, and it's as if you were doing it unto me." There are many hungry people in our communities. The Appleton Food Bank feeds over 3,000 people every month, and they could use your prayers. In these troubling times, the number of clients they are serving is increasing. You can make a donation today. Go online to AppletonBaptist.com. AppletonBaptist.com. Food drives, prayers, financial donations, all help. They have rented 2 old grocery stores. They're open 7 days a week for donations, and they distribute every Monday and Friday. The motto at Appleton Baptist Church is taking Jesus as he is to people as they are. And you can get involved and help feed the hungry. Go to the website, AppletonBaptist.com. You know, there is someone hungry in your world tonight. So as you're seated tonight at your dinner table, enjoying the mashed potato and steak off the barbecue grill, remember that there are many people in our communities, in our world, that are not as fortunate as you are. So please consider donating your time, funds, and food to your local food bank or food pantry. And as you enjoy the barbecue tonight, please remember them. Check on the widows, elderly, and the orphans as well. You can donate in the Appleton, Tennessee area to Appleton Baptist Church. They have a food pantry there that would love your support. And there are many food pantries all over America. We need to feed this nation in more ways than one, but one way that we can literally feed them is with food. Get involved and make a difference.
Welcome back, my friends. This is Macil Duncan, and this is the Macil Duncan Show here, broadcast live from Chattanooga, Tennessee on the MacilDuncanRadio.com, USAHeartbeat.com, StreetLevelAmerica.com, DestinyLifeMedia.com, SGM Radio out of Alabama, the New Jersey Freedom Network in New Jersey, Tennessee Conservatives, God and Politics platform, and etc. Thanks so much for liking, sharing the show. I've got a special guest on today. Samantha's with the Turning Point USA, and on the website it says America needs a strong church, and we're dedicated to empowering Christians to put their faith into action. Samantha, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Pastor Duncan.
You're welcome. You took the place of my good friend Nicole Hersheyberger, right?
Yes, I did. I've heard wonderful things about her.
She was a soul winner, great, passionate, pretty good speaker too. Let me tell you, she lit it up at a luncheon here at our church when we launched the biblical citizenship class that your group sponsors. But But anyway, I gave you a few questions we had talked about, and my phone just went blank. Hang on, Samantha. There we go. Tell us what it's like to work for Charlie Kirk in Turning Point USA.
Oh, I love that you asked this question because it has been just such a blessing. Charlie is just such a wonderful, God-fearing leader with such a great vision. You know, we can see how he's working in politics and now the church. Just the team itself, too, is some of the most kind and bold followers of Christ that I've been able to meet. I feel like I'm constantly being poured into by, you know, both leadership and staff, and I've never had that at a job. And then they're training us and giving us opportunities to pour into the community so we can really, you know, experience Christ's love and, you know, be able to stand bold together.
Now, you're a part of the faith aspect of that, right? Trying to partner with the churches and pastors?
Yes. So we get to work with pastors. We create community faith hubs, partnering with, you know, the GOP because they want to become more Christ-like. So it's kind of anyone who has interest in the faith community, too.
So what made Samantha want to work for a nonprofit, and what do you like most about it?
So I very specifically wanted to work for Turning Point. About 4 years ago, I moved to Nashville. I'm still located there, and I had just such a heart for artist management. So serving artists, being able to take care of talent and, you know, be exposed to the entertainment industry, it was great, but also I saw so many professionals that were abusing that power and then negatively influencing society. And then just seeing the way that they were taking their power and, you know, some of the things that they're putting out there, I realized that I wanted to be a part of this conversation, this fight too, but I needed to join the right side, you know? So I just wanted to be able to serve in the way that God was preparing me to. And honestly, like, the best part, both internal and external, are the people. So, like I said, the team's great. And then all of the pastors and congregations, they've been such an encouragement to just keep working, and then I get to encourage them. So it's all awesome.
Well, I know you're not supposed to ask a lady's age, but you sound very young. I'm assuming you're in your 20s. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm 27.
27.
So,
oh, you looked younger. I thought 23.
You know, most people do. I was just talking to someone about this. I will go to restaurants and sometimes still get kids menus. I'm like, guys, please. I drove myself.
One of my Texas, Janet's listening. Janet, she could put her hair in a ponytail, and they would hand her the crayons as our families would go out to eat, and she would get so mad. She was in her 20s before they finally realized, hey, she's not a kid. But my point at your generation you've had now internet at your fingertips, you've had smartphones, all this technology, and for you to work in the part of Turning Point USA with churches, churches tend to shy away from technology in modern, especially the smaller churches. Have you had any challenges getting pastors or churches to accept what Turning Point's trying to offer?
So I'm actually about a month into the job, and that's how we got connected, because I sent my hello email.
Oh, you've only been at a month. I thought it was longer. I apologize. Okay.
That's okay. But the really cool thing is seeing how a lot of churches are embracing that. So, you know, there's movies like the 1916 Project from Seth Gruber, or Eric Metaxas' Letter to the American Church. And I this week was so lucky to be able to go to 2 viewings of the 1916 Project and get to sit with congregations and learn about, you know, the background of Margaret Sanger, the background of Planned Parenthood, what, you know, truly their heart is behind those missions.
Well, you know, the Wall Street Journal just put out some numbers, which is good and bad. It says the good is the young men are becoming more conservative in their voting and their thinking, which is the first in 25 years. But young women have really been galvanized by the abortion issue, and it is hard to. I guess sometimes ladies sometimes have to talk to ladies. Sometimes they think I'm just a white male misogynist pig. You know, I'm 50. You know, I have 3 daughters, and my wife and them would have those conversations sometimes. Every now and then in the car we'd be driving and they'd get too girly talk. I'd say, hey, guy in the car. But anyway, with that said, does Turning Point Faith, do you have discussion opportunities for girls that may be battling some of these liberal think tanks? Do you have
stuff?
Oh,
my goodness. Yes. So we're all about serving the church and the community, when we have conversations, if you have the opportunity and, let me in to help you guys, if you ask for that specifically, we can build programs around that. I would love to be a part of something like that because it is so important. Media is teaching us that are we happy? Is it about you? And no, it's how do we put others first? So yeah, we absolutely can do that.
And do you guys use Zoom and other technologies to where you can maybe have large discussions with girls around the state of Tennessee or wherever you're located?
If that's what you're looking for, then we absolutely can do that, virtual or in person. So we're just pushing communication, honestly, because once conversation starts, that's when people, that's when kindness ends. And that's something that Charlie says all the time if you follow his feed.
I don't know if you know this, Chattanooga is the largest city in America without an abortion clinic.
Wow, good for you guys. That's amazing.
And they had one back in the 70s, and we shut it down. The Christians did. And Hoyt, the lawyer, he was on my show a few weeks back, just giving us a history lesson. And what they did is they bought the building, and then they have a memorial. And it's of anyone that's lost a child to abortion. If they want to name the child, it's on the wall. And Senator Marsha Blackburn came a few months back, and I had the chance to. She's been on my show too, but we had a chance to talk. And she's very pro-life. There's a lot of good people out there that are pro-life, but and I know we said we wouldn't get political because you guys aren't supposed to get too political, but you kind of mentioned that you found it was easier to work with GOP than the DNC. Do you have many pro-life Democrats that ever cross your path?
Not at this point, I haven't. The GOP is really open to working together, especially we have 73 days until the election. So we're trying to mobilize and get voter registration out there. So what I'm seeing a lot of is people want to order our faith kits, and we can do voter registration kits. And a lot of the courses that we offer, of course, are politically based. So there's Faith in the Town Square, there's Politics Easy as Pie, and they lay out the foundation of, politics equals integrity plus economics. So we're giving the congregations or community members what they need to kind of figure out how they want to vote themselves.
Well, that's good because I tell you, young people sometimes are exploited, by the education system, by the political system, and in different ways, and they can be easily manipulated. They don't like to hear you say that. But would you agree that the young people today, it's kind of easy to manipulate them, but when you find someone that's, hey, I want to be educated, and say they contact TPUSA Faith, how can, if there's a parent right now listening or a young person, how can they contact you, Samantha, and say, hey, I want to know more about what we're talking about?
Yeah, I am always free to talk to parents, congregations, whoever is looking to learn more about how they can get involved. You can reach out via cell. I don't know if I can share that on here if you're okay with that.
Oh, if it's up to you.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, you can reach out at 724-814-4559. That's my cell. You can text me, call me, whatever you need. Or you can reach out via email if you're more comfortable with that. And it's Samantha, so SAMANTHA .Funderlich, that's a fun last name. F as in Frank, UND as in David, ERLICH at tpfaith.com. You're talking about that media. That's, the whole reason why I left the entertainment industry. You're just watching how influencers are, whatever they're being paid to say, they'll say. You have people pushing, Taylor Swift pushing Pfizer and stuff like that. These girls look up to her, so of course they're going to go and do what these influencers are saying, as opposed to doing the research themselves because they trust their screens.
So are you a Swiftie, or you're saying you're not?
Maybe that's political. I'm kidding.
Okay. Well,
I wouldn't consider myself a Swiftie, but I love the Swifties.
Well, she's got a song, "Why You Gotta Be So Mean." It's an old one, but I played on my show every night the chorus because every now and then both sides can be mean. But if they go to the TPUSAFaith.com website, can they find you there?
So you won't be able to find a direct link to me, but if they want to fill out the contact form, so I'll have you put your name, your contact information, and why you're reaching out, I'll get a notification and I'll reach out to you as soon as I see it.
Well, I'll tell you what Nicole did, and it sounds like what you're doing too. She reached out to several of us pastors and asked us to host one of the biblical citizenship classes, and it's an 8-week course, and we did. And a buddy of mine in East Tennessee came up for the kickoff luncheon, and he hosted it in Johnson City, Tennessee. But I highly recommend that. But just the opening night with Kirk Cameron, and that statue, that to me it's like a hidden gem. But do you have a favorite part of that course that you really like?
Honestly, pretty much the same thing. When he comes out and just you can see all the passion that he has for, the actual history. And when you're talking about, God was actually in so many letters when they were writing the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. People say we aren't a Christian nation, but, God is in there. He's mentioned, he's in the letters, the Bible verses are there. So that's why I nerd out about that stuff.
Now, I've got listeners, in Texas. We got 32 states, Mexico, and Canada. Now, you represent, of course, here in Tennessee. But now I just want to make sure Turning Point USA is one, but TurningPointUSAFaith.com is more what you rep, the faith aspect. Is that right?
Yes. So Turning Point has multiple facets to it. There's Turning Point Action. You're going to find those in your swing states right now. You have the education portion, and they work on resourcing for homeschooling, etc. You have the National Field Program, which is your high school and college, and then you have faith. So we are, like we said, working with the churches and the faith community. We actually also work with a large Jewish community, which is really cool. There are representatives for all 50 states. So I'm actually over Mississippi, Louisiana, and Tennessee. So if you're listening from there, I'd love to connect with you. But if you fill out that form, it will ask you where you're from, and then if you're not from one of those 3 states, you'll get sent to any of the other wonderful regional managers.
Now, you live in Nashville. You said you worked in the music industry to some level?
Yeah, so I actually used to be full-time. I did artist management, publicity. I booked Broadway for 2 years. I worked at K-Love, and then actually started my own little boutique artist management company too. So I can kind of still stay involved. My heart right now really is with, working with churches.
Well, that is so cool. Have you met any famous singers or artists?
Yes. What kind of music do you like? And we can talk from there.
Did you ever meet Blake Shelton? Any country people?
So I actually haven't met Blake Shelton, but I've had the opportunity to work with Charles Kelly of Lady Antebellum. So I used to book a venue called Nash House down on Broadway, and we hosted his first show post-rehab, and it was such a great night to watch the community come together and support him and welcome him back into town. And
John Rich, is that, yeah,
yes, he's down there too.
I love his Earth to God song.
He's great.
His talk with the Governor Lee, have you heard about that?
No, I haven't. Tell me.
He met with Governor Lee, and he brought a book and said, "Hey, Governor, I want to ask you, if I read this to your son or grandson, what would you do?" And the governor said, "I'd have you thrown in jail." He goes, "Well, sir, that's one of our textbooks here in Tennessee." He took the cover off, and the governor, that changed his view on public education, and that's why some of the changes. So it took someone like John Rich going to the governor and using his influence to say, "Sir, are you aware?" Because his inner circle was keeping him away from seeing that stuff.
Wow. It's just so cool to see how God uses us all as parts of the body. We have Charlie, who's gifted with this leadership, so he has Turning Point, John Rich doing that, and you have a radio show. It's just so cool to see.
I got a radio show. I wasn't looking for this. I didn't shut my church down during COVID. I just felt it was our time to shine, so we kept our church open and our food pantry, and we feed over 3,000 people a month. And so I just felt like we couldn't turn people away. And for a while, we were the only food pantry in Chattanooga open. A radio station interviewed me. Next thing I know, I'm doing a daily show And now USA Heartbeat picked me up in Street Level America, and now they've got me in multiple states. We're trying to go coast to coast. We got some other stations that are picking up the show, but I said it all goes back to, Samantha, just taking a stand for what you know to be right.
So good. Well, thank you for all you're doing. How can we get involved with the food pantry? I'd love to know.
Well, the food pantry, we're open 7 days a week, and we give out the bulk of our food on Fridays from 10 to 3. If you're ever in Chattanooga on a Friday, come down and I'll give you a tour and let you see. We rent 2 old grocery stores in downtown Appleton, which isn't very big. It's a small country, okay, area. But we have folks that drive from North Georgia, and there's a thing called the Chattanooga Food Bank here, and they service Cleveland, Tennessee, Chattanooga, and North Georgia. And there's 250 food distributors. Last year, we were the 3rd largest distributor out of 250.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was such a blessing, because that's our church. That's what we do. We feed the hungry, and we go out and try to impact the community. We're not a sit in the pew and type church. We're kind of a wear your blue jeans and let's get to work time church. So
that's amazing.
But Charlie Kirk, do you guys have anything in Tennessee coming up? Any events or rallies you want to promote?
Well, I just started here, so we're really just getting our feet on the ground. I'd love to build some events out with anyone who's interested. Any movies you guys want to watch, Letter to the American Church or the 1916 Project, please reach out. I'd love to just get involved or get some voter registration kits to you guys.
Okay, and I'll just put the way. So you're also open to coming to churches if they have a student rally or something. You're open to come and speak and just have conversations and just help educate kids on wholesome issues. Is that what we're hearing here?
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions that anyone has, please let's just get the conversations going.
Well, Samantha, it's been good having you on the show, and I want to have you back from time to time. And when you have an event and you ever want me to promote it or you want to do a quick call, and feel free to do so, okay?
Thank you so much. You are amazing, and thank you for all the work you're doing. We appreciate you so much.
You're welcome. Tell Charlie Kirk he's got fans in Chattanooga, and we'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Absolutely. All right, you have a great day.
Thanks, Samantha. That's Miss Samantha with Turning Point USA. She's with the Faith Division. And if you go to turningpointfaith.com, America Needs a Strong Church. It's a lot. It's got courses. It's got a link for pastors, how you can donate and help them financially, and all kind of things. But Samantha's brand new, as you heard in her testimony, and I just wanted to give her a little shout out and help because I have 3 daughters in ministry, and I know what it's like to try to get your foot in the door somewhere and get your name out there. My youngest daughter works at a crisis pregnancy center down in Louisiana. My middle daughter works with inner city kids in Knoxville, her and her husband. And then my oldest daughter, her husband works at discipleship ministry, interdenominational, it's global. And so it's just neat to have, but I know my heart goes out to young girls trying to break it into the ministry. Because, Pastor, some of you do kind of think that girls don't have a spot in the ministry, and I'd have to take you to task on that. I think ladies need those opportunities. All right, my friends, we'll be having Jack Allen calling in at 5. He is a congressional candidate in Tennessee. He's taking on my good friend Chuck Flashman. And Chuck is up in all the polls, but I got to admire him for trying. Now, Jack and I have a connection in that he was married in my church here that I pastor, Appleton Baptist, years ago, and he and I helped officiate a funeral here. A good friend of ours, Richard, passed away, and I did the preaching. He did the eulogy, and Richard Anderson, great man of God, his sweet wife, Charlotte, is still with us. And but anyway, Jack's a good guy. I just tease him that he's on the wrong side. He's on the Democrat side, but I like to hear what everyone has to say. And I just thought to be fair. Plus, not many Democrats will come on a conservative talk show. So you got to give him credit for doing that. So we'll hear from him at 5 o'clock. And as we get ready to move towards a break here, want to remind you of a couple of things. One being that the big thing that I think a lot of folks don't realize is the upcoming election it's going to be about the courts. and I've told you all this before, but the court system, a lot of folks forget it's going to be about the courts, and the court system, it's very big. And I just want you, I played this a few days ago. Listen again. This is a 2-minute explanation about what's at stake with the upcoming election. I'm not talking the economy. I'm not talking the border right now. I'm not talking Scooby-Doo stuff. This is probably one of the most, if not the most important issue, and neither side's really talking about it. But the Senate and Congress unanimously voted for this. Okay, if both sides voted for this unanimously, why aren't they talking about it?
Whoever wins the presidential election could have 22 new federal judge positions to fill, in addition to the vacant seats that arise due to resignations, retirements, and promotions. Congress is working to create 63 new permanent district judgeships, the first new seats since 2003. The Judges Act of 2024 passed the Senate unanimously. It now heads to the House. If the bill is signed into law, the next president will be able to appoint 11 of the judges in 2025 and 11 more in 2027. Those 22 new seats span the country. There are 6 in California, 4 in Texas, and 3 in Florida, while the rest are dispersed in smaller states. Not only would the bill create the first new seats since 2003, it would be the first significant expansion since 1990.
Our federal courts are in a genuine crisis of workload. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, not since 1990 have we added any significant amount of new federal judges. And since then, our nation has added 100 million people. Federal filings have increased 40%, and the weighted case average across our nation is 550 cases per judge.
The people of this country are entitled to justice, and justice is a speedy process. And when that's slowed down, it's not really justice.
Grassley was initially concerned the bill created too many new positions, so the authors spread out the appointments, adding 10 or 11 new seats every odd-numbered year from 2025 to 2035. District courts hear the bulk of the nation's court cases. More than 353,000 criminal and civil cases were filed at the district court level in 2023. Due to the backlog, at year's end, there were 702,000 pending cases. District courts are the ultimate decider in a vast majority of cases. For instance, in 2023, only 40,000 appeals were made to the circuit court. The Supreme Court typically gets all the attention when senators and the president campaign on judicial issues. The reality is, of the more than 400 combined judicial appointments made by Presidents Biden and Trump, approximately 330 were at the district level. These judges receive lifetime appointments, so they make decisions far longer than the president who nominated them stays in office.
So, interesting enough, federal judgeships. Now, if you remember when Donald Trump took office, he said he was surprised that Obama left 300 appointments for him. Donald Trump appointed 300 federal judges plus 3 Supreme Court justices. He swung a lot of judicial process to the conservative notion, if you will. The problem is now they voted to expand the courts. And some of you have only heard that they want to expand the Supreme Court. That's something that Kamala Harris didn't want to do because Donald Trump did so much damage to the liberal minutia, if you will, in the legal system. Then you have the Chevron ruling. When the Supreme Court ruled that Chevron was illegal, meaning that they can't have all these secret little courts and these secret trial, if you will. There's these hidden courts, and many call it the deep state, the shadow government. And rightfully so, that's what they were. Well, that has now been called illegal and pretty much, and they're disbanding those. To make up for that, they have to publicly make available these new judgeships. So if you heard, there'll be up to 63 appointments this next president will make due to retirements, replacements, and etc. And plus, there's going to be 11 new positions at 2025, and in 2027, 11 more. And they've got this set up between now and 2035, a lot of new federal judgeships across the globe, across the country. Are you aware that the judgeships, especially these lifetime appointment judges, they shaped the country. You've got to know that. And that's why I encourage pastors, you are a community mindsetter. You're a mind changer. You're someone that comes in and can help people see issues. And beyond the other issues, like I said, the economy and border and those things, judicial appointments by the president make impacts for 30, 40 years. That's generational. You've got to pray about, when you vote, who will make the most conservative judge appointments to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think I know who I would vote for. Begins with a T. I'll be back.
Hi, my name is Beverly Reynolds. I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I just wanted to let you know that I feel it's important to have the Macil Duncan radio show. I listen to him and support him completely because he tells the truth that we don't hear on mainstream media concerning local, state, national, world happenings. He talks about our nation that was formed as one nation under God with the inclusion of individuals' God-given rights. He speaks about God, our creator. He talks about our Constitution that guarantees those rights. And the people need to get involved in their freedom, liberty, and regaining and retaining and protecting their constitutional rights. So I believe everyone should hear his show. They should get involved, whether it's physical, it's prayer, whatever. They need to get involved and pay attention to what's going on, and he's putting that word out there. He's a true Christian patriot, and I wish all Americans could hear his show. Thank you.
WVMG Chattanooga. Do you love God and do you love America? If you do, you're going to love this radio show, the Macil Duncan Radio Show, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m. Right here at Destiny Life Media, 96.9 FM. You can also hear the show live and archives of the show at streetlevelamerica.com and usaheartbeat.com. Also hear it at MacilDuncanRadio.com, Rumble, X, Truth Social, Facebook, and more. And we're working on growing the show nationwide. The Patriot Pastor of Apposon Baptist Church, he is Macil Duncan on the Macil Duncan Radio Show. We are growing better together all the time. Those are the words of Dr. Steve Ball of Metro Tabernacle Church in Chattanooga, Tennessee. One of the ways that they grow is with life groups. It's very important for you to get connected in a small group so you can develop relationships and hold each other accountable. Dr. Ball says they believe that Metro Tab is growing larger and smaller at the same time. Life groups are an important part in developing relationships with others who share your interests and are dealing with similar life issues. Why don't you get connected? Check out life groups and the many other offerings at Metro Tabernacle Church in Chattanooga, Tennessee. They want to be involved in your life. The address is 2101 West Shepherd Road, just off Highway 153 at the airport exit. It is time for the Church of Jesus Christ to roar. That is one of the core principles of Metro Tabernacle Church in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Their mission is to restore the roar in the body of Christ by establishing a foundation of faith in the Word of God through the power and demonstration of His Holy Spirit. They will reclaim the original intent of God for the church through training, equipping, releasing believers, and raising up leaders who will carry the roar of the Lion of the tribe of Judah to build strong local churches. And we all need that. You can find out more information by going to their website, myroar.org. Metro Tabernacle Church is located at 2101 West Shepherd Road, at the airport exit off of Highway 153 in Chattanooga. Let's roar.
Here's the good news. While mainstream outlets denied me a critical platform, they didn't shut down my ideas, which have especially flourished among young voters and independent voters, thanks to the alternative media. Many months ago, I promised the American people that I would withdraw from the race if I became a spoiler. A spoiler is someone who will alter the outcome of the election but has no chance of winning.
Now, this is Robert Kennedy. He just made a big speech today. I played at if you're watching the beginning of my podcast, I started 13 minutes early because I started when his podcast started, and I wanted to catch as much as I could. He excoriates the Democrats and the way they took him to court, kept him off ballots, kept him from being able to challenge Biden, etc. And he kind of endorses Trump. See what you think.
In my heart, I no longer believe that I have a realistic path to electoral victory in the face of this relentless, systematic censorship and media control. So I cannot in good conscience ask my staff and volunteers to keep working their long hours or ask my donors to keep giving when I cannot honestly tell them that I have a real path to the White House. Furthermore, our polling consistently showed that by staying on the ballot in the battleground states, I would likely hand the election over to the Democrats with whom I disagree on the most existential issues: censorship, war, and chronic disease. Oh, I want everyone to know that I am not terminating my campaign. I am simply suspending it and not ending it. My name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me. And if enough of you do vote for me, and neither of the major party candidates win 270 votes, which is quite possible, in fact, today our polling shows them tying at 269 to 269, and I could conceivably still end up in the White House in a contingent election. But in about 10 battleground states where my presence would be a spoiler, I'm going to remove my name, and I've already started that process and urge voters not to vote for me. It's with a sense of victory and not defeat that I'm suspending my campaign activities. Not only did we do the impossible by collecting 1 million signatures, we changed the national political conversation forever. Chronic disease, free speech, government corruption, breaking our addiction to war have moved to the center of politics.
So that's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he, if you go and listen to the whole speech, he brings up how his father and uncle, who both were assassinated, would not agree with the current Democratic Party and the process. He pretty much makes fun of how they knew a declining Biden, but they would not allow him or anyone else to primary Biden, and therefore they got to handpick their candidate Harris when she did not have any votes. She was not a primary candidate against Biden. She's not done any interviews, and the media is obviously carrying her water. And he said, this is not fair, this is not democratic. So he's asking folks in the swing states pretty much to vote for Trump, if you read through the lines. It wasn't a flaming endorsement, but I thought it was pretty good. We'll see what happens from this. Supposedly, he's also holding out for a cabinet position. Don't know. But this right here, on the end of the Democratic convention, this has got to put a little bit of water on the fire that Kamala thought she had. So I think this is very interesting, and I thought it's something, if you haven't heard, it's happening. It's here. It's a Friday. News on Fridays tend to roll off our heads because we're all dying to get to where we're going to do our weekends. Football's around the corner. Tennessee is ranked number 15, as you guys know, in the AP poll, but in an ESPN poll, it's got us in the top 10. So if you're a hopium drinker like me, you're hoping, hey, Tennessee. So sometimes it's hard with the weekend coming up. I think high school football starts back tonight in certain areas, so your mind's on a lot of things. Well, Republicans want Biden to deny entry to leaders of Iran, Cuba, and Venezuela. This is an interesting report. See what you think about this.
5 Republican senators are calling on President Biden to deny visas to the leaders of Iran, Cuba, and Venezuela for September's UN General Assembly. The senators called the presidents of those countries a threat to U.S. national security. In a letter, Senators Scott, Rubio, Ernst, Cotton, and Mullen told President Biden the United States must prevent the UN General Assembly from becoming a stage for the most evil leaders on earth to gain credibility and promote their dangerous views. The UN General Assembly is a gathering of all 193 member countries. Every nation has an equal vote as they set the UN's budget, appoint the Secretary General, and select non-permanent members of the Security Council. The heads of each country are also given time to address the body and the world. The senators said the U.S. has historically taken principled stands against welcoming foreign leaders who could threaten our values and interests. They gave the examples of President Reagan denying a visa to Yasser Arafat in 1988 due to his support for state-sponsored terrorism, and President Trump's denial of Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif in 2020. The senators say Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel is continuing the Castro dictatorship with brutal oppression. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has vowed to continue targeting the U.S. and Israel. And Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has committed human rights abuses and caused millions to flee the nation, many to America.
So I don't know what you guys think. Now, my only concern about this is this plays into the hand that we are, it makes us look like a dictator. Technically, I know the UN's in New York and it's in America, but that is supposed to be a place where all the nations have their right to speak and be represented. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to ban Maduro, for instance, from coming, then what you ought to do is intervene and say, listen, your election was fraudulent. If we're going to be the world police, why don't you get involved in areas of atrocity when you know that he has done nothing but steal elections and oppress his people? Banning him from coming to the UN, I just think that makes you look like him. But if you really want to make a difference, but I don't think they want to make a difference. They just want to every now and then appease us that, hey, they're doing something. Not real a fan of this. Just thought I'd play it for you. And it's just one of those things. Evangelist Lou Engle calls 1 million Esthers to the D.C. Mall for America's Last Stand. CBN News reports.
The book of Esther tells us how God raised up a woman during a time of crisis to save her people, the Jews. Evangelist Lou Engle sees 2024 as another pivotal moment in history, with God calling on women once again. Now he's planning for a major event at the D.C. Mall in October. Take a look.
Knows America is in a time of crisis. The world is in a time of crisis. Esther was raised up at a time that if there wasn't a shift, they would lose a whole nation.
In 2017, Lou Engle had a powerful dream.
And a woman stands up and she says, and she's teaching the book of Esther, and she says, and these 2 words in the book of Esther actually mean Nazgul. I explode out of the dream instantly knowing what it means because I watched the 3rd part of The Lord of the Rings where the Nazgul Witch King is destroying the armies of men and says, no man can kill me. But the king's daughter takes off her helmet, lets her hair down, and says,
I am no man.
and she pierces the Nazgul. I wake up and I knew there's coming a massive women's Esther movement that will have authority, just like Esther, to take down spiritual powers, ideologies, and they will rise up a righteous women's movement. And I believe they will shift history.
That's why on October 12th, the Jewish Day of Atonement, Engel is calling for an army of women to fast and pray on the National Mall in D.C.
So there is a desire for a Esther, a women's movement, and that is, I think, very, very much something that you need. But the Wall Street Journal just did a report, and I'll play it again today, that the young women are actually being persuaded into liberal views such as pro-choice.
In 2008, 58% of young people leaned Democratic. 2012, 53%. And in the last two major election years, that percentage held steady at 55%. But in 2023, that number dipped below 50% for the first time since 2005.
Now, that's the first time since 2005. That's a long time for there to be a shift towards conservatism. But it's with the guys, not the girls.
And you'll notice right here, they've started to lean more Republican. And that's partly because of one specific group, young men. Young men have increased their support of the Republican Party from 35% to 48%, a 13 percentage point increase in just 7 years. And this is a new trend. While 2020 exit polls show that young men backed Biden by 15 percentage points, a February 2024 Wall Street Journal poll found they favored Trump by 14 percentage points. And this loss of young male voters is a major issue for the Democratic Party going into November. The question now, can Kamala Harris bring some back? Here's what's driving young men to support Republicans and what it could mean for the presidential election to come.
America great again. When we ask young voters, what issue is most important to you when you go to cast a vote? Among young men, it's the economy. Among young women, it's abortion.
How about that? So young men, it's the economy. Young women, it's abortion. So the Wall Street Journal goes on to say how young women and 87% of the ladies are college educated and they're being swayed. I can't say again, they know this. Kids are very formidable years. Before a kid turns 6 or 7, I can't remember, they can learn up to 5 languages because their brain's developing. Before age 12, when they're hitting puberty, their knowledge retention is unreal. It's compared to a computer, it's unreal. But if you can get the children perverted in those early years about transgenderism, all these different things that they're trying to get these kids to believe, also hating your country, hating your parents, questioning authority, by the time they get in college, they become good little soldiers. And then they become lawyers, get appointed to courts, and it's a slow erosion of America. So this Esther movement that this gentleman is praying for, I pray is for real. And his name is Lou Ingalls, and I'm just going to go back to that just a second. They announced the date here. Check it out.
That's why on October 12th, the Jewish Day of Atonement, Engel is calling for an army of women to fast and pray on the National Mall in D.C.
October 12th, 1 million women to fast and pray could be powerful. Think about it. Now, I want to just quickly remind you that the liberals had triggered a movement called the Me Too movement. The whole purpose was to turn on Donald Trump and to try to make him come across like a misogynist and bring up all these allegations and stuff. It backfired because women can think for themselves. And this is where I think they messed up with the Me Too movement. They actually thought people like Ashley Judd, the lip-lock liberals, were going to want to turn on Trump. And what they said, no, this is our time to shine. They went after Harvey Weinstein, Epstein, etc. And before you know it, Hollywood was turned on its ear by a group that they actually started. See, the devil's the author of confusion, but the Lord has a hand in such things. Would it not be amazing if on October 12th, 1 million women did come and pray and fast. And through the power of the Holy Spirit, you saw a movement among women that shifted not just the course of an election, but the course of a nation. I would love to see it. I don't know about you. I would love to see it. We're coming up on the break, and we didn't get to play my favorite new song. Some of you guys have heard me mention it. It's called Patriots Come in Red and Blue. And since I'm about to have my good friend Jack Allen on, who's a Democrat, Jack, if you're listening and preparing, this song's for you, pal.
When I turn on the news, I see a country that's divided. Don't matter what the channel, it always feels one-sided. They tell us that it's us first, then as our country comes unwound, it's time we come together on our hallowed ground. Remember 9/11 when we all stood side by side? Americans, not enemies, a country full of pride. They try to force us into boxes, you're either blue, you're red. Instead of digging in, let's find some common ground instead. One thing that I know to be true, patriots come in red and blue. Red and blue. Just because we don't agree, don't mean that we should hate each other. Whatever happened to love one another? Remember 9/11 when we all stood side by side? Americans, not enemies, a country full of pride. They try to force us into boxes, you're either blue, you are red. Instead of digging in, let's find some common ground instead. One thing that I know to be true, patriots come in red and blue. Red and blue. Just because we don't agree, don't mean that we should hate each other. Whatever happened to love one another? Remember 9/11 when we all stood side by side? Americans, not enemies, a country full of pride. They try to force us into boxes, you're either blue, you're red. Instead of digging in, let's find some common ground instead. One thing that I know to be true, patriots come in red and blue. Red and blue. Just because we don't agree, don't mean that we should hate each other. Whatever happened to love one another?
That's a good song for this day and time, is it not? Just because we don't agree doesn't mean we have to hate each other. I don't know how many of you have different opinions of friends. You got folks that don't agree maybe on vaccinations. That was a big friendship splitter back when the COVID thing was happening. If you didn't take the shots, there were folks that said you're infected. This is what I never understood. Those of us that are non-vaxxers, well, you're going to get us all killed. If your shot works, why does it matter? Think about the logic here. Why take the shot if an unvaccinated could kill you? See, it's mind manipulation. The weak-minded are easily manipulated in times of stress. Can I remind you of, these are Saul Alinsky's, and he wrote the book Rules for Radicals. 8 ways to take down a country. And number 1, healthcare. Control healthcare and you control the people. Number 2 is poverty. Increase poverty level as high as possible. Poor people are easier to control and will not fight back if you are providing everything for them to live. Number 3 is debt. Increase the debt to unsustainable level in their personal life and nationally. That way you are able to increase taxes that will produce more poverty. Number 4, gun control. Remove the ability to defend themselves from the government. That way you're able to create a police state. Number 5 is welfare. Take control of every aspect of their lives, food, housing, and income. Number 6, education. Take control of what people read and listen to. Take control of what the children learn in schools. Number 7, religion. Remove the belief of God from government and schools and as much of public square. Number 8, class welfare. Divide the people into wealthy and poor, black and white, etc. This will cause more disconnect, and it will be easier to take the tax of the wealthy to support the poor, and therefore you will have what you call useful idiots. That's what Zelensky said. Now, you may say, what's the big deal about Zelensky? Paul Zelensky was a community organizer, and he lived in Chicago. And he was known for making a lot of inroads. He really helped develop a lot of the union strategies that you see now about uniting people and getting them to unite and say, listen, we don't work if we don't get this in return. Now, the unions played a role in fair wages and some other things because there was an inhumane treatment of workers. There was a time. But now it's become bully tactics, you know. And like the Rainbow Coalition, Jesse Jackson is known for going to corporations in the past and saying, listen, write me $1 million check or I will shut you down and it'll cost you more than $1 million. I mean, that's to me, blackmail money. But a lot of companies would write the $1 million check because they didn't want to have people rallying, messing up their business, breaking their stuff, and it would cost them more than $1 million sometimes. So that's the mentality. But see, you need to understand, Saul Alinsky wrote a book called Rules for Radicals. The book Rules for Radicals was dedicated to Lucifer, the devil. He said, who led the first successful rebellion by leading a third of the angels from heaven. See, Satanists celebrate that. They think he's a hero. He took 1/3 of the angels from the presence of God. They see that as a wonderful example of how you on this earth can be rebellious and see victory. Saul Alinsky had a big impact on a young lady who was called to be a missionary when she was young, and Miss Rodham went to college, but within her first year or two, she met up with this Saul Alinsky, and he changed her from wanting to be a missionary and be someone of faith to become someone of politics. Of course, you know her now as Hillary Rodham Clinton. She wrote her senior thesis on Saul Alinsky and saw him out as a hero. Another political person that you may know of that modeled his life after this guy, because he was a community organizer as well, was Barry Soetoro. Barry Soetoro in college really fell in love with the Saul Alinsky methods, and he established himself as a community organizer in Chicago. Of course, he became a Muslim and changed his name to Barack Hussein Obama. So you've got two major political families that when you look at their model, it's Saul Alinsky. And this Rules for Radicals. One of the things Rules for Radical teaches is if you want the people to adopt some kind of a method and you know they won't buy into it, create a crisis that is so bad in their view that your method they'll accept because of the crisis that they would not accept without the crisis. For instance, say COVID, say it was a pandemic, just humor me. You would accept not only vaccinations, but vaccination cards, living in zones, not travel. That was the plan, that you and I would have to have these health cards, and you weren't allowed to enter certain facilities or buildings without proper federal ID and authorization, but it failed. Bill Gates said at Davos, the reason that it failed was he said 73% of Americans just could not give up their freedom. Thank God for that. I'll be back after the break here with Jack Allen, the congressional Democrat candidate.
Hello, my name's Dave. I'm a Vietnam veteran and live in North Georgia, not far from East Ridge, Tennessee. I like listening to Patriot Pastor Macil Duncan. He keeps up with fast-moving news, which keeps me on the cutting edge of information that we all need to know. I like the music and stories he has. I like that he helps the homeless folk, and we could all help with that. I love God, and America is my country. Thank you for all that you do. Goodbye.
WVMG Chattanooga. It is time for Christians to roar, to make a difference in the community. That is the belief of Metro Tabernacle Church and Dr. Steve Ball. They have the School of Roar. The School of Roar is hosting a summer 2024 The Prophetic. Classes open to everyone, and registration is free. Do you want to learn how to work more in the prophetic? Attend one of the class schedules. Registration deadline June 2nd. There will be a class Tuesday, June 18th at 6:30 p.m. and one again July 16th at 6:30 p.m. You can register at the website metrotab.net or myroar.org. That is myroar.org. It is time for the church to roar. 917society.com, led by Joni Bryan from Nashville, funds the National Education Order 108447 in 1959 that declared Constitution Day in public schools, and that's something we sorely need. More than 1 million kids last year got a free copy of the Constitution, and this year's goal is 2 million kids. Imagine that. The Constitution in the hands of 2 million American kids. On September 17th, all public schools are to distribute and educate students on the Constitution of the United States. If you'd like to help out, 917, that's 917society.com, led by Joni Bryan of Nashville, Tennessee. And remember, the goal this year, 2 million copies of the Constitution in kids' hands. And you can help. Again, the website, 917society.com. Jesus said, "You do it unto the least of these, and it's as if you were doing it unto me." There are many hungry people in our communities. The Appleton Food Bank feeds over 3,000 people every month, and they could use your prayers. In these troubling times, the number of clients they are serving is increasing. You can make a donation today. Go online to appisonbaptist.com. appisonbaptist.com. Food drives, prayers, financial donations, all help. They have rented 2 old grocery stores. They're open 7 days a week for donations, and they distribute every Monday and Friday. The motto at Appison Baptist Church is taking Jesus as he is to people as they are. And you can get involved and help feed the hungry. Go to the website, appisonbaptist.com.
Turn on the news, I see a country that's divided. Don't matter what the channel.
This is my new favorite song.
It always feels
It talks about
one-sided.
why can't the red and blue come together?
They tell us that it's us first, them as our country comes unwound.
Jack, have you heard this song?
It's time we come together on our hollow ground. Remember 9/11 when we all stood side by side.
This guy, he talks about the red and blue coming together and about loving one another, even if you have different views. And that's what we're going to try to do today because, Jack, you are a congressional Democrat candidate. And I was explaining earlier in the show, and I hate that yesterday we had a problem with the radio station, and when we had to cancel and play a rerun. So those that were expecting you yesterday, I do apologize. But Jack Allen, who's running for the, he's going to take on my friend Chuck Flashman in the congressional battle here in Tennessee. But Jack, I don't think folks realize we didn't mention the other day that you were married in Appleton Baptist Church here. Is that correct?
My wife was a member of Appleton Baptist. I was married in Appleton Baptist. If you remember, not too long ago, I was in your pulpit at the funeral of Richard Anderson. I spoke at Richard's funeral.
Yeah, you did the eulogy, and I did the message. And Miss Charlotte's headed now up to Maryland to live with her daughter.
Yeah, and let me say, and I know you don't ever brag on yourself, but I'm gonna brag on you because this is my wife's aunt who I should have been out there helping load up, get her moved, and I wasn't because I was campaigning. But who was out there helping her load up?
Well, me and some of the guys went and helped load up. We prayed over, and my wife and I went over Sunday. Just to love on her because she just had knee surgery, and Charlotte's a special lady, and but she's going to live with her youngest Amy because with Richard gone now.
And you come out to Morning Point where my mother-in-law is, and you bring a joy to those folks, and and I'm bragging on you now, but you do what people should do, and you don't get paid. And you probably don't get the thanks you deserve, but I've watched you over the years, and I appreciate what you do, and that's one of the reasons I want us to be good friends.
Well, I'll be at Morning Point this Sunday, filling in for Bill Hollander. He and I rotate the pulpit, and he's got to do the Lord's Supper at Ridgedale. And it's a great church, and Dr. Plumley there, and I went to high school at Red Bank, so he's a great guy. So there's a lot of good pastors in Chattanooga. We're blessed to have so many good ones. But Jack, we'll pick up the conversation. You're running as a Democrat.
Yes. Now you're shaking your head saying why.
In a very red area.
Very red.
I mean, have you? I know you've thought about that. I mean, have you had any poll work done? I mean, how you holding up?
Well, I'd like to tell y'all about the polls, but let me tell you one of the things I'm doing, Pastor, is that I worry, and I've worried a lot about how people are walking away from the political process. They're getting turned off by it, particularly young people. And there's a lot of reasons. One of them is, and I talk to people. When we started this process, I actually met with folks from the Republican Party that thought I would be a really good Republican since I was president of a bank. And then I had a group that were independents that came to me, and they said, Jack, we'd like to see you run as an independent. I'm running as a Democrat, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But one of the things I'm doing is trying to show people. When I got into this, they said, you can't do this without $1.5 million. I don't have $1.5 million. You know what? If we wind up with, well, let me just say, we're running it. We're trying to show people that you can run for office, and you don't have to have a lot of money. And we're using social media. What we're using more than anything else is my shoe leather, because as soon as I finish here, I'm headed to the Polk County Fair. I've got probably 6 events this weekend. I had 8 last weekend. So part of what we're trying to do is I'm encouraging people, run for office, be involved. Let's don't wake up and be an autocracy, and it could happen. You know that just as well as I do. If good people and good people like me and you don't stand up and agree and encourage people, I don't know what we're going to wind up. But I appreciate what you're doing. As always, I talk too much. I'll shut up.
Oh, no. I was approached to run for school board twice. Some groups came to me, said they would sponsor me financially.
Sure.
But I got too much on my plate for one. But two, when I saw that Jody Schaefer was going to run, and as I looked into her, she's going to be a good one. I believe she'll win hands down. But the main concern they had was with Rhonda Thurman stepping down, will we have a conservative voice on the school board? Right. And so at this point, we're gonna do a wait and see how Jody does.
Okay.
I'm not saying never, but if for some reason she's unable to be that conservative voice, that's the only political office I would really consider, is helping reshape the education system. But with that said, Jack, you and I talked last time that you felt like you could get the Democrats to listen to you more than the GOP when it comes to financial fiscal responsibility. And with you being a banker, I mean, you probably have had to foreclose and tell folks, sorry, you're spending more money than you're taking in. Again, in case someone didn't hear what you had a brief talk with me a few days ago, our government is spending more money than they're taking in. How are they able to do that?
Well, they're just like it's like we're running the country on a credit card. And listen, if you looked at me and you said, "Hey, Jack, we're going to redo all these interstate highways out here," which we're doing now, and we're going to issue long-term bonds, like buying a home, I'd say, well, that makes sense. You match a loan with a lifetime of an asset. We're not doing that. We're just borrowing money to keep the doors open. And let me give you a fact real quick, and I love this one because you're gonna get bored of me because I'm an accountant, so I like numbers. But we're approaching $900 billion a year just on interest on our debt. Now, that's more than we spend on national defense. And somebody asked me the other day, they said, what is $900 billion? I said, well, I'll tell you what it is. If George Washington was 9 years old and you said, George, why don't you hand out a $100 bill every second? He would still be handing out $100 bills. I mean, it overwhelms you to think about how much money it is. And, I mean, do you hear people talking about it, Pastor? Do you really? I know you talked about Tommy Tuberville, and if I get elected, I'm going to go track him down.
He's the only politician I ever really hear talk about fiscal responsibility, and he has said, he goes, we spend more than we take in. He goes, and he said, quote, if I ran my house like the government runs, he goes, I would have all my assets taken away.
Yes, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but if I got to Washington, every conversation I would have is the exact conversation I had with my family, with my church, with my civic club, with my bank. Every time we start a project, the first thing I say is, all right, let's talk about how we're going to pay for this. How are we going to pay for it? Nobody asked that question. And I'm going to push hard to get elected, but one of the things I'm doing, and you and I are doing it right now, is we're making people think. And if I don't get elected, but people say, hey, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't be running up $35 trillion in debt, and they start talking to their elected officials, maybe you and I have done our job.
Yeah, but Biden didn't pass that bill, which, Kamala pushed over the top, where they hired 87,000 new IRS agents and all this crazy stuff to squeeze the people for more money. And you just, the increasing taxes isn't working. We've got to stop the spending. But when they send all this money over to the Ukraine, but you remember the FTX scandal down in the Bahamas when right. I call him Beanbag Boy, when he was caught. All that money, and it happened, this is what concerns me. On midterm elections, I don't know if in 2022, that's when all that money disappeared. It was funneling back into political partners or on both sides, GOP and Democrats. The largest donor to the Democratic Party was George Soros. The second largest was FTX. And he lost, $6 billion in a few hours, and they still said now you're a banker. Don't they know where that money went?
They should. Now, you're getting above my pay grade. Now, I was a country banker, but, yeah, if you understand basic accounting, you ought to be able to track it down. But let me respond quickly because this is where you and I are going to differ just a little bit. I don't think more IRS agents are a problem, and let me tell you why. Because I was talking to a lady here in Chattanooga that used to work for the IRS in Chattanooga, and she said there used to be 13 agents in Chattanooga. Now there's one, and she said she would recover about $4 million a year in taxes that weren't paid. Now, when you say that, you say, "Oh gosh, they're going after people." Well, no. In my bank, here I'm an Eagle Scout. I've never cheated on my taxes. We paid an accounting firm to do our taxes, and the IRS came in one day, and they looked at it, and they said, "Well, you owe us $20,000. I said, "What owe you $20,000 for?" Well, they showed me the reg, and they showed my accounting firm the reg, and they said, "You guys are not properly accounting for this." Now, they didn't try to arrest us or put us in jail. They just said, "You got this improper." And I looked at my accounting firm, and they said, "Well, we don't believe it. We can hire an attorney, and we can fight this in court." And I said, "We're not fighting nothing in court. We're going to write them a check for $20,000. But what I'm saying is, it's not like in every case they're like the big bad IRS coming in. The tax code is so complicated. And you got to agree, it's so complicated. And it shouldn't. And that was one of the things I want to go to Congress about. I want to unwind that tax code, but and that's something I could do. But I mean, I'm not saying a few IRS agents just to look over the shoulder of honest business people like me that might make a mistake. Now, I'll tell you another time they came in and they owed me money. We didn't have done something we should have. So it can go both ways.
Yeah, but the job description, I happen to have it in front of me. Do you remember when they were looking for these new IRS agents? One, they had to be physically fit. That means no fatties. They had to be willing to carry a sidearm and use deadly force if needed. The word deadly force was in there, if needed. They had to be willing to work long hours, and they had to be willing to use physical force if needed. Why would these 4 new restrictions be put on IRS agents?
And let me tell you one thing.
That's on the internet. You can go read it.
I've done a few podcasts along the way, and people told me, said, "You know what we like best about you, Jack?" And I said, "What's that?" It says, "When you don't know, you say you don't know." So I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. I've met a lot of IRS agents in my life, and they were usually just kind of, they look like accountants.
Well, most of them look like they frequent Dunkin' Donuts. My point is, I have the physique of a normal IRS agent. My point is, why would they? Well, my point is, but these new 4 requirements, when they passed that bill, it was in there.
Yeah.
They had to be physically fit, had to be willing to use deadly force, carry a weapon, and not afraid. Those things, and had to be willing to work long hours. I don't understand why you would put that in a bill passed by Congress, and those requirements. It's like they were hiring bullies. Because I've always pictured a IRS agent with a pocket protector, glasses, and people that were super intellectual. Until we saw Lois Lerner. Do you remember her, the lady that admitted she during the Obama administration that they targeted nonprofit Christian organizations, and once she finally admitted her guilt, kind of like Cheadle, she was removed, but she did no jail time. Now, if she went against a group like me and found out we moved a penny the wrong way, they would throw me in jail. Why don't these people ever get in trouble? Is what I'm saying, Jack.
Let me run one other thing by you. And this, when I say this, and I told you when we started this, I'm a little unusual. I would be the most pro small business congressman in the Southeast. And I'll tell you why, because that's the life I have lived, and I've watched small businesses, and I've seen their struggles. I was talking to a small businessman recently, a friend of mine, and he does some business with the federal government. And he filled out a form, put it in the wrong spot, $1,800 check, put it in the wrong spot, and he gets a call from the federal government, and they say, you're going to lose your license to do business with the government because you're not properly reporting. Well, it was a mistake. Now, he wound up hiring an attorney, paid $7,000, and he got it mixed up. Why couldn't he call his congressman, Jack Allen, and say, I got a problem here. And I can guarantee you Jack Allen would pick up the phone and say, hey, wait a minute. This is a local guy. Just fix the dadgum thing. Now, you think I'm nuts, but I mean, I spent 40 years as a small business guy, and I know it. And I have occasionally found government people that are very open, and they say, oh, yeah, you made a mistake, we'll fix it. But then I found folks that weren't quite as cooperative. That's why a small business person shouldn't have to hire an attorney. They ought to be able to pick up the congressman.
Well, you brought up a good point. My father was in an accident. He fell and broke his neck in the back.
Yeah.
And took him to the emergency room, and they sent him home in a brace. Didn't do any X-rays and stuff. And so anyway, then they said he couldn't be seen by the doctor for a month. But they told him not to move his neck. Either way, he could paralyze himself.
Yeah.
I called Chuck Flashman and his office. Well, guess what? We got a call. We were in the doctor's office the next morning at 9 o'clock. And that's what I'm saying. So calling your congressman does make a difference, because when Chuck picked up the phone, he made a difference. So you're saying that's the way you would be as well, like Chuck's been. Hey, you call, if one of your constituents call you, you're going to respond.
I think I may be wrong, but I think I believe he's got like 18 employees. He's got an office in Chattanooga, an office in Athens, an office in Oak Ridge, an office. I would have at least 3 people that were geared to do nothing but work with small businesses. And because small businesses, I mean, they're paying the freight.
Well, I personally think small businesses, because I don't know if you know this, in our Ukraine funding, did you know the small businesses in the Ukraine are getting a $1,500 to $2,000 stimulus check every month from the U.S. tax dollar? Why in the crap are we giving small business money to small business in the Ukraine? Why not give it to the small business owners here in America?
Hey, you make a good point. All I know is, and look, I would be very pro small business. I'd be very pro, nonprofit. I mean, listen, I would live here in the district and do what, and when I talk about doing this is what I've always done. I'm sitting in a community bank and people wander through the door and they say, oh, Jack, we got a problem. I had a rule up there. Anytime somebody came in, I'd say, the answer is yes, tell me the problem. And we'd figure it out. And sometimes we could help them. Sometimes they had to help themselves, but at least we could, do a plan. And we may have that now. We may have it now, and I don't know it, but I don't see it.
Well, the biggest effect of COVID and lockdowns was the small businesses, as you know. And I thought it was very interesting that you weren't allowed to go to your gym. You couldn't go get a haircut, all the things. But you could go to a nudie bar, get a lap dance, or go get an abortion, or go buy your liquor because they were essential. Now, there's a problem. There's a problem with that, my friend.
They had the right lobby.
Well, that's my point. If you can go get a lap dance and get, or go to a nudie club, or go to get your liquor, or go get an abortion, that was essential. My point is, government has a very skewed view of what really is small business. So what I hear you saying, I hope I'm hearing you saying, if you got to Washington, you would not just look at the skewed view of small businesses, but all small businesses. Am I hearing that?
I would be the most pro. Listen, I would be the most pro small business. Hey, what you asked me yesterday, you said, what would people be surprised about me? And I would tell you that I don't believe government is the answer to all the problems. And I'll give you an example. I kept up with your food pantry. In fact, I'm coming to work at it, I promise you. But I've kept up with it, and I mean, I suspect that y'all, and I've looked at the numbers. It's incredible what you guys do, and it really is. And congratulations, and I mean it. But if the government was running that program, I bet it costs 5 times as much as it does.
Well, none of us get paid. The government would make sure they're paid, and their union would be paid. And for any food went off the line, there'd be $1 million in the back pockets of a bunch of fat people that had no business with the money.
Yeah. I helped run a food program when I was in Athens for 14 years. I was the treasurer, and we did the same thing. Nobody got paid, and then we operate on donations, and I'll admit sometimes the government would have these excess food programs and things like that, and we'd get involved in them, and we'd get donations. That's where the government needs to come in if they got extra, cheese or whatever.
Did you know we used to get these nice boxes that had meat, milk, and veggies, a big old 5-pound bag of potatoes. And it had a letter front and back in English and Spanish saying, "Hey, we're sorry you're going through tough times."
Yeah.
And that was from President Trump. As soon as Biden took office, that stopped.
Yeah, I don't know about that. All I'm saying is,
well, I do because I was a recipient. All that food that Trump, when he put the tariffs on China and all them, he bought up the farm products that they weren't buying. And we had to be one of 4 recipients. He bought all the food from farmers, and then he gave it to food banks like me. So my point is, we need someone like that to go to office in the Democratic Party to say, listen, let's help people and not try to program it.
You're talking to that guy. I don't know what you know about me, but here's what I can tell you. I grew up in a 2-bedroom rent house with my 3 sisters. I didn't even have a bedroom. And I've worked my entire life. I caught chickens. I was a chicken catcher. Were you ever a chicken catcher?
No, I watched Rocky when he tried to catch that chicken.
Well, you go into the chicken houses as it gets dark, and you catch them to put them in the crates, and that's a fun job. But when you're about 12, 13 years old, but I was a hay hauler. I worked in the carpet mills of Dalton. I was a guy in the Diebeck. I worked in chemical plants. I'm a mechanic. Right now, if you wanted me to come do a tile job for you, you'd be surprised because I'm a tile guy. I do bathroom showers, things like that. I've worked my entire life, and so I can relate to a different world. Let me put it like that.
So in your opinion, how can small businesses? What do you think we could do if you had the stroke of a pen? If you could do an executive order, if you will. How would you try to help small businesses in America?
Well, when I say this, I shouldn't say it because now somebody going to say, "Well, now Jack, you're a socialist." But I would try to figure out how to get small businesses into healthcare plans that made sense for them. And let me tell you this. When I was in the banking business, I would have all these people come to me, and they would have these great ideas, and they would have these passions for things that they would like to do. But they were in a dead-end job. And you know why? Because they had health care for their families, and they couldn't leave that job because it wasn't portable. They couldn't leave that job. If we could, and I don't know how, this is something I think about a lot. Is there some way to bring a small business into a subsidized health care plan for 4 or 5 years to get them up and because that's the biggest hindrance, and you know that. I don't know
churches. My wife works for us to have health care. My church, I have no benefits here. That's just the way churches are nowadays. They don't pay you health care. They don't pay retirement. So I'll probably be a Walmart greeter when I turn 70. But the point is, you don't do things for the. I don't do things for the money. It's pretty obvious. But the point is, I like what you're saying because there's people out there with desires to start businesses. Yeah. Even if it's a side business, a lot of folks are doing stuff out of their garages or in their homes.
Yeah.
And if you could come up with a way to say, hey, for 5 years, we're going to give you a health perk for you and your family. Yes. That would probably spark a lot. I like the thought of that myself.
I really believe it would pay for itself and increase taxes. See, here's the thing, and I have a plan. You can put it on a cocktail napkin. It's that simple. How to get us out of debt. The first thing is you have to get your head into government spending. You got to get the problem with the federal government, and I want to stop for right now, Pastor, and tell you, I am a glass is 98% full kind of guy. This is the greatest country in the history of the world. I wake up every day thankful that I was born here. I may have started out catching chickens, but you know what? I had an opportunity to do other things, and that's what I've done in my entire life. I think it is a great country. I think we need to, it's just like a garden, though. It's got to be worked. It's got to be watered. It's got to be, and I'm afraid the last 30 years we've not took care of the garden like we should have. So I say that now. Where'd I get lost on there?
Well, hey, can I fire a few questions at you? One is, what did you think of Robert F. Kennedy's speech today? And he kind of excoriated the Democratic Party, and but he's kind of staying in the race, but he's pulling his name out of the battleground states. Some people thought he was going to endorse Trump. I don't think he really did. Did you think he endorsed Trump?
I listened to it because I was working on some other projects today, and I turned that on. And I said, "Let me see what's happening to him." And I kind of walked away scratching my head, saying, "I'm not sure what he's doing."
Yeah, I felt like he was still playing the middle, because someone said he called Kamala. He's kind of hinting for a cabinet post.
Right.
And I guess neither side is willing to give him that. So his big announcement today was, "I'm still in the race," per se.
He kind of said, "If it's a blue state, go ahead and vote for me. But if it's a red state, vote for Trump." But I just didn't understand where he was headed with all that. And I know he's a nice enough fella, and you got to respect his family. But
he went Switzerland on us. You know how Switzerland always was supposed to be the neutral. He definitely went Switzerland on us today, and many thought he was going to do a big Trump endorsement. And it kind of, I mean, when he kind of said, "I don't want to be a spoiler in the battleground states," because he kind of said we didn't want to help them win.
Right.
I think but here's the question: don't you think the Democrats messed up by not allowing someone to primary Biden? I mean, hindsight's 20/20. Because other parties have only let their incumbent run without being primaried. You know, I think Obama did in his second term, Clinton and Bush. But now Trump, they wouldn't let Trump. They primaried him. Yeah. You know, I personally think it's good to primary even an incumbent president. It gives people choices. But then not to have it, and then to kind of put Kamala in there. I mean, you're a Democrat. I know you got to be careful. We're in 32 states, Mexico, and Canada. But do you have any problem with Kamala just being given this opportunity with no real votes? I mean, is it bothering you at all?
You know, I don't have a real problem with it because,
dude, are you serious?
I mean, look, and when I tell you this,
is this affecting matching funds? I don't want to get you in trouble.
I don't have any matching funds.
Oh, they don't. Oh, I thought the Democrats, they don't do any matching funds for you.
No. Well, no, I hadn't had a matching fund from anybody. But if you're in 32 states, I would like to say that perhaps there's one person out there that would like to chip in, but we'll find them later. No, I don't want any matching funds. No. Let me tell you, people ask me all the time, what do you think about Donald Trump? What do you think about Biden? What do you think about her? I tell them, look, let me tell you something. I really can't affect those people. Here's who I can affect. I can affect the people in the 3rd District, the 730,000 people that I have spent my life with. I have cried with them. I spoke at a funeral last week. I mean, I have lived this life, and now I look at them, and they're 44th in health care. 44th, Pastor. That's not fair. We deserve better than that. I could go down the whole list of things that we're not doing well at. And so I'm saying I can't affect Vice President Harris or Donald Trump, but I can fix a small business person in our district that might be having a problem.
No, I'm not. Here's the problem. I like you, Jack, as a person. It's your party that concerns me because – you know, they voted God out of the platform a few decades ago, and then the way they've just handled something. There's some great Democrats out there. It's some of your party's policies, and I'm just curious if this is going to bite them because I don't believe the polls because some of the recent polls just came out last night have Trump up by 8 points and 10 points again. I believe she's going to lose and lose big, and I think the reason is because they should have allowed Dean Phillips, because if Kennedy was, I believe Kennedy would be their guy, and for the life of me, he's liberal. He's pro-abortion. He believes in all they believe, but I guess he's too independent-minded. I don't know, but I just don't understand. Or secondly, when they started to make this decision, why didn't they ask Kennedy to be her vice president? You know, this Waltz guy is to me another nightmare for them. But hey, I guess they're seeing, hey, if we do an ultra-liberal left candidacy, we'll see. But here's the Axios says Georgia County Election Board could become the 2024 battleground. And now you're from Georgia. Are you aware of what they're saying, that Georgia could be, that the path of the president could run through Georgia?
Yeah. I've been, and it's going to be a battle down there. I mean, and it has been, you know. I mean, so if I was in the advertising business and I lived in Georgia, I would be very, very, very happy.
Well, I'm just saying, for Axios to bring that up, well, then I don't know if you heard last night on Hannity. You know, the devil went down to Georgia. He looked for a soul to steal, and he got Kemp's soul, no doubt. Well, Kemp must have got saved, because he said last night on Hannity he's buried the hatchet with Trump. He's officially ending the feud, and he vows to help him get into the White House.
Yeah. I don't know
what happened. I mean,
I saw that.
Kemp, here's something I got to ask you, okay? You know, after someone does an address to the nation, the opposite party usually picks one of their up-and-coming leaders to do the rebuttal. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Well, Trump's very first address to the nation, they picked Stacey Abrams. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, I know Stacey.
Okay, but I wonder if that was a consolation prize, because I got to wonder, he was Secretary of State, just like Katie Hobbs was in Arizona. If you're Secretary of State and you're managing your own election results, I wonder, looking back now, if Stacey Abrams was right. I wonder if they stole it from her.
Very possible.
Because to give her that spot, that was like a, hey, we're going to give you some opportunities.
Yeah.
And don't you think that was odd? Because she's never won an election.
Listen, I have never understood, and I'm going to say on both sides, the Democratic side and the Republican side, those rebuttals are generally horrible.
Oh, yeah, you very rarely listen to them.
No, but when you do, you scratch your head and say, y'all could beat this.
Well, Sarah Huckabee did.
Let me do it.
Sarah Huckabee did one on one of Biden's, which was fairly good. But most of them are pretty snoozers, and you're ready to go to bed anyway. Yeah. But for Brian Kemp to officially end the feud with Trump, and vows to support Trump, and there's pressure because you know what happened when Trump was president, and he shut down that Costco port in California. Not the C, but the K Costco. It was China, because they were in child sex trafficking, and fentanyl was the accusation. Well, then China was needing to get their goods. They came through Georgia. Do you know Georgia became the second and third largest import of Chinese goods when they shut down the California ports? So is there a way?
Man, they were just packed.
That's what I'm saying. And Kemp did all these commercials with the China flag behind him. They're all over the internet. My point being, what check? Because he was in. I mean, good. Unless Kemp's going to run for president in the near future, and he knows he needs Trump's endorsement to make that happen.
And that would not surprise me.
And I wonder if I wonder if the deal was made, and because Ron DeSantis, what a mistake he made going after Trump. He should have kept his lips shut. He probably would have been the VP right now. But him and what's her name? From South Carolina, the Boeing-backed girl, crazy. So politics is what I'm getting at. There's such disingenuous and what's her name? The former secretary. I mean, the former governor. You know what I'm talking about?
Which state?
South Carolina. She was the ambassador.
Oh, Nikki Haley.
Yeah, Nikki Haley hated Trump when he ran the first time. Then he gets in, he appoints her as UN.
Yeah.
Well, then when he gets impeached after her 2 years, she decides to retire, and she talks bad about him. Well, then he comes out of it, wins the nomination 2020. She's back. Oh, I love this guy. I'm going to help that guy win. Well, then he loses, and she talks bad about him again. I mean, you talk about that's probably the worst Republican flip-flopper of all time.
Yeah.
But if you get up there, is my point. How do you deal with folks that are just bold-faced liars like Nikki Haley?
See, I don't understand any of that. I'm not listening to me. I'm not going after you. Go look at all my stuff. You know, I'm not going after Trump. I'm not going after Chuck Fleshman. I'm not going after anybody. I'm going at to try to fix the issues that my friends and neighbors and people I care about are dealing with every day.
Well, if you're up there in Congress, you're going to have to vote on laws. And Blaze Media reports, this is a hot topic now, Trump promises death penalty for illegal alien sex traffickers, and victims' family endorse former president. He went down to the border, yesterday.
Right.
What would be your response if you were in Congress? Would you vote for the death penalty for illegal aliens that raped our women and children?
Well, that sounds good, but it's going to be whatever state it happens in. The state's going to handle that. I mean, if they're in Texas, they're getting, they're dying. If they're in New York, maybe not. But I don't know that Congress can do that. It's a state issue.
Well,
But it sounds good if you're standing there at the border. It makes good press. But
when Donald Trump first ran for office, he came down the escalator. You remember the first place he went was to the border, and he put on the hat, and he said if the wall's going to get higher. His first campaign promise was the border and the border wall. He did a border wall. He didn't get to finish it. But with all that said, I think the biggest issue is not the border wall and the economy as much as these judge appointments. I guess you heard, I've played it a couple of times, but whoever's the next president will pick 63 federal judges, and 27 will be brand new expansion courts.
Right.
But neither side, it was unanimously passed in the Senate, and it's going to get passed in the Congress, they're saying. Why did such a unanimous situation? I've not heard much about that, have you?
No, I have not.
And I'm wondering why, because that, to me, judge appointments is, I vote primarily who will pick good judges. And, the Senate, that's their main job, is to affirm those appointments.
Yeah.
But I believe Congress, if you were to take Chuck's spot, you would have to appropriate the funding. That's your all's cherry in the pie, is you guys get to control the pocketbook.
Yeah, but you know what I would say, don't you?
What's that? How are we going to pay for it?
Yeah, I'd say, it's really fun to go out and do appropriations and to do all this stuff. I mean, that's like the good parent. Hey, let's go to Lake Winnebagoca. But then you got to have the bad parent that says, hey, wait just a minute. How are we going to pay for this? I would be the bad parent, and I would probably not get reelected, and probably people would hate me, but I would make them think. I would say, no. How are we paying for? I want to know how you pay. You want to go to don't you think that's a common sense thing to ask?
Well, it does to me that there's supposed to be some restrictions. We don't see any. And again, I go back to Mike Johnson. I mentioned this earlier. He said when he first became Speaker of the House, which was in the middle of a term, I know he wasn't prepared, but he said we will not give any money to foreign nations without securing our borders first.
Yeah.
And then what happened? They took him to a back room and must beat him up or showed him pictures of his kids that they were going to hurt. And because he folded like a lawn chair and started sending money to the Ukraine and Israel without any border protection.
Hey, I'm okay with that if I know how we're going to pay for it. But don't just open a blank check. And let me give you an example. And the first thing I would do, and I got into this thing, I said, you can do this on a cocktail napkin. It's not that hard to do. First thing you do is you say, we got to control spending. And maybe you just say, we got to cut across the board. Let me give you an example. The problem with the federal government is if we get into something and we don't know how to get out and we keep spending money. We got 23 prisoners down in Guatemala down there, in Cuba. 23 prisoners. Been there what? Or no, we got 30 prisoners. Been there 23 years. How much do you think it cost per prisoner to keep them down there?
Oh, I bet you, $100,000 a year?
13 million.
Per prisoner?
13 million.
Oh,
13 million per prisoner. Been down there. Why didn't somebody say either turn them loose or put them in another prison or do something? I mean, but my point is, if you multiply that times, and I'll tell you something else. This is going to get real controversial. People are going to get mad at me.
Well, real quick, Obama tried to have them tried in New York courts.
Yeah.
Because for that same reason. He said, listen, we need to find them guilty or let them go. And
exactly.
he of course, he's a fellow Muslim, and folks threw that in his face. But I got to give Obama some credit. He was trying, I think, to do that very thing.
Yeah.
And of course, it didn't work out. The guys go stay in Gitmo, and we're writing checks.
Yeah. Now listen to this, and people are gonna get mad at me when I say it, but we got to say it because this is a big part of the issue. We go into Afghanistan, and I know we went in for the right reasons. Listen, and I have so much respect. I can see the Medal of Honor Museum from my window right now. I live downtown, and these people have just paid the price so you and I can enjoy it. And George Bush, and I liked old George, he stood up on the carrier and he said, job well done. But guess what? We stayed in Afghanistan. And President Obama comes along. 8 years, we stayed in Afghanistan. Donald Trump came along. 4 years, we stayed in Afghanistan. Now, it was like having your thumb in a dike. Nobody wanted to pull their thumb out. Now, Biden, I don't know if it was what his intention was, but it was a horrible mess. But do you know how much it cost per day to stay in Afghanistan? Per day. $300 million. $300 million. Think about that for a minute. If you gave me $300 million and said, Jack, you can spend that on health care in East Tennessee for these 16 hospitals that have closed, it would make all the difference in the world.
Okay, but he pulled out and he left $80 million worth of supplies. But not only that, did you know the first 2 airplanes that flew out were Iraqi male men, 18 to 34? And they were flown directly to military air bases. Why did the first 2 airplanes they weren't Americans, they weren't assets, they were Iraqi men. Why were we flying out Iraqi men the first 2? And that's reported by Marines. Yeah. And then we had the 13 Marines that were blown up because they didn't give the kill order. And the worst news is not only did we pull out bad, we gave that air base. Now China has one of our most expensive air bases. Yeah. I'm with you. I wish we would have pulled out decades ago. But when General Milley said he would give a tip to his Chinese counterpart if Trump tried to make a move on China, etc., I'm just saying it's corrupt, my friend. I think both parties up there in D.C. have got such a stench. That's why the independent movement is so high right now. Independent people, when polled, there's more independents now than are Democrat or Republican. I guess you're aware of that. And I think it's because, George Washington gave us a warning in his farewell address. Be weary of the masters that control the parties. Don't let them master over you. Yeah. But when I go up here to the fire hall to vote, the first thing I'm asked, are you a Democrat or Republican? And there's always a newbie, and I always say, well, I'm an American. I would like an American ballot. Right. And then she rolls her eyes, says, well, sir, you have to pick. I said, why? Yeah, and then the others are over giggling because they've heard. Every time I go to vote, I say it. I want to know why, because we have open primaries. Yeah. If they did closed primaries and made folks decide, I'm a Democrat, Republican, then the ballot on election day would have everyone on it. You wouldn't have a Republican or Democratic ballot. But both parties have agreed we don't want an independent voice or another third party. So we'll just fight amongst ourselves. Don't you think that's a shame that they're afraid of a third party or independent voters or independent candidates?
Well, like I said, I had people who came to me and said, "Hey, why don't you run as independent and we'll support you?" And I told you, listen, I've been a Democrat all my life, and you look at me and say, "Jack, that is the craziest thing ever." But let me tell you a little bit.
There's probably a pill for that.
Well, I get. Listen, I told you earlier. I said since I was 12, 13 years old, I worked every day. When I left for college, my daddy gave me $5 and said, "Have a great time." I mean, I've worked my entire life, and so I kind of relate. Now, people are going to get mad when I say this, but I kind of relate to the Democratic Party because they actually get things done. And I'll give you an example. I mean, I'm looking out the window. There's the Tennessee River. There's a dam. There's TVA. Remember, East Tennessee was flooded, and all of a sudden the Democratic Party bet on East Tennessee, and they put in the dams and electricity and nuclear power. You know, as the Democratic Party brought us nuclear power, Social Security, civil rights, FDIC insurance, so people don't lose their money. They call it Obamacare, but they don't call it that anymore. But there's 45 million people that are insured in that program. Everybody keeps saying they want to repeal it and do something different. They can't find anything else. The highways out there that are being built, there's a history of, and I'm trying to be. When I was doing my research on this, I said, well, the women's right to vote.
That was voted in by Republicans. It was not Democrats. It was Republicans.
It was presented by Wilson as a Democratic president, but I will tell you, Harry Byrne made the final vote, who his family are friends of mine and wonderful people up in McMinn County.
But if it wasn't for the Republicans, women wouldn't be voting.
Well, either way, let's give them both credit for that. How about let's do bipartisan? But I'm gonna go both ways because I went back. As much as people didn't like Nixon, he did the EPA, he did the Clean Air Act, he did the Clean Water Act. I mean, both parties have done things, but I want to be associated with people that do things, that get something done. You know what that Congress did last year? Can you think of anything that they really did?
They give money to Ukraine. That's their big accomplishment.
I think that it was the least productive Congress in maybe a century. I can't remember, but I think almost half of the bills were naming post offices. While we sat down here in Tennessee, and we got issues. Now, again, I think we live in the greatest part of the country.
I think you can blame the Republicans for that because one, they had a party feud in the middle. McCarthy, they got rid of McCarthy, bring in Johnson, which I like Speaker Johnson a lot better, but he wasn't prepared. He didn't have the war chest, the legal team lined up, so he's been dead man walking almost the whole thing. And Hakeem Jeffries is a newbie because you got to admit Pelosi's hard to replace. I'm not a Pelosi fan, but I respect that she kept her party in line. And when she was in power, my friend, they marched. And no offense, she's the one that got Biden out. She said, "Joe, we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way." Do you remember her saying that? And
listen. Tim Burchett up there in Knoxville, I sort of halfway know him. He's congressman up there, and he said, you can love Pelosi, you can hate her, but I tell you one thing, she knew where every paperclip was.
she got it done, but anyway, well, hey, we got 7 minutes left. Was there anything else you wanted to share with the people that maybe you hadn't had a chance to share?
Well, and if you notice, I'm not sitting here. How many times have I blamed the Democrats or the Republicans? I'm not playing the blame game. I'm not calling names. In our campaign, we started out and we said, we're going to be about truth and civility. We're going to tell the truth, and we're going to be nice to people. And you cannot. We are forbidden in my campaign, and I got a bunch of young people that work with me. But I say you cannot use the word fight. We never say. All these people say, "I'll fight for you. I'll fight for you." Fighting time's over. It's time to work. It's time to roll up our sleeves and work. And let's fix these things. I don't need a career. I don't need to be famous. I don't need to be on CNN. But I'm in a space in my life where I'm retired, and I'm a widower. I have time on my hands, and I worry about the future of East Tennessee. Listen, this is the greatest place ever to live. Everybody lives here and knows it, but it's like a garden. It's got to be groomed. It's got to be watered. It's got to have people that care and love it. I want to be that person, and I think you and I agree on 98% of the stuff, and that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be.
Well, one thing I'm big on is I am pro-life. Are you pro-life?
I am the most pro-life person you've ever met. Now, that's just for a whole nother discussion. But when I say pro-life, Pastor, I'm looking out here on Broad Street, seeing people sleeping on the street. I'm seeing people that are hungry, and guess who's taking care of that? You are. I'm looking at insufficient. You know, in this country, in Tennessee, we're in the fourth of the bottom of women dying. We have 33 deaths per 100,000 pregnancies from women dying from pregnancy because our health care is so bad. If we are pro-life, we've got to do something about that. That's why you need me. It bothers me. I have 3 sisters, a mother. I was married for 38 years from a young lady from your church. I'm here. You know, I don't know if you know the reason I'm in Chattanooga. I'm in Chattanooga because of my mother-in-law, which thank you for taking care of her. But that's why I live down here. I just came back to take care of her. Women are important to me, and it is. I respect, and this is where you and I are going to get a little different. I don't need to tell them what to do. I need to love them. I need to respect them. I need to give them the platform to make the decisions that they need to make, and I don't need to get in their way.
So you agree with the "My Body, My Choice" slogan?
I believe 2 things. I believe my body, my choice, but I believe that we and this is what my 90-year-old mother told me. She said, Jack, your job is to take care of women. I believe as men, we have to be there for women.
What about the babies though? They don't get a vote. They're in the womb, my friend. And if you ever watched the movie Silent Scream, when they're cutting the child's legs off, he's screaming in the womb, fighting for his life. What about the babies? What about the ones that have no voice? Do we want to fight for their life?
I want to fight for everybody's life, including the homeless people out there on the street. Is the kids in school that need safety, the people that they're born, they should have health care. They should have health care that they don't. They should have. Well, anyway, we're gonna run out of time, and this is maybe we need to block a whole nother spot off for this. But I'll give you an example. In Athens, we got a place called Full Circle Pregnancy. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's faith-based, but their job is they teach young women, particularly, about abstinence and birth control, and then if somebody has a pregnancy, they're there for them. They give them options, and if they make another choice, they're there for them too. And it's sponsored. It's a faith-based. I used to work with them. I've moved, but I told you the answers are not the government. The answers are not the government. The answers are Appleton Baptist Church.
Well, see, that's what I think. When Donald Trump sent it back to the states, they're trying to say he's against abortion. He just so knew he sent it back to the states and let states and cities make their own choices. But hey, we're out of time here, Jack. But thanks for being on the show today, buddy. And my prayers are with you. And we'll talk again soon.
Hey, I look forward to it, and I mean it. Thank you for what you do for that church. Thank you for what you do for the communities. Hey, thank you for what you do for my wife's family.
Well, you're welcome, and I'll be at Morning Point this Sunday at let's see.
No, she's already told me you're coming.
Yeah, tell her I'm coming. But hey, I gotta go. We're running out.
Okay, all right.
Thanks,
Talk to you
Jack.
later. Thank you. Bye.
That was Jack, who's running for Congress here in the 3rd District. Against my friend Chuck Flashman. And if you are a Democrat and would like to know, or an independent, go to Jack's website. You can learn more about him. God bless, Godspeed, my friends. And it's Friday. Have a good weekend. I'll see you Monday.
small town roads where the story's old but true. We used to bow our heads in prayer, we'd pledge allegiance to. Now the lights are flickering, the signs all point to fall, where that spirit gold that used to stand so tall. Factory stands are empty, schools don't teach no more. Folks drive by the church like it's something to ignore. We used to hold our ground with hands together tight, but the unity we had has vanished in the night. This country's going to hell, can't you hear the warning bell? What once was one nation under God has disappeared. We the people soon be no more if we don't take a stand. It's time to raise that flag and put God back in this land. We got preachers out on Main Street shouting at the skies, but nobody's listening, too busy with the lies. The family dinner's cold now, faith broke at the seams. It's high time to awake and chase those old dreams. Fields are overgrown, tractors left to rust. Where's the honor and the pride, the values that we trust? Cemeteries filled with souls who knew the way it was. We need to reawaken and fix this just because. This country's going to hell, can't you hear the warning bell? What once was one nation under God has disappeared. We the people soon be no more if we don't take a stand. It's time to raise that flag and put God back in this land. This country's going to hell, can't you hear the warning bell? What once was one nation under God has disappeared. We the people soon be no more if we don't take a stand. It's time to raise that flag and put God back in this land.
I don't know if you guys think this country's going to hell, but depending on which view you are and which side of the aisle you're at. But this is Macil Duncan. I'll be signing off. If you caught the front end of the video today, I started early because Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the word was he was going to endorse Donald Trump and step out of the race. He kind of halfway did the middle. He kind of pulled a Switzerland. He kind of tried to please both sides. He suspended his campaign, and he said in the Democrat states vote for him. But he said in the battleground states, he's removing his name. He doesn't want to be a spoiler, if you will, and help Kamala Harris win. So that was like a soft endorsement, but it wasn't what we were expecting. It wasn't a full endorsement. And so I think a lot of us, not like we're super disappointed, but it's not what we were expecting. All right, it's the weekend, and I'm going to play my favorite song one more time as I click out of here, and I'll see you Monday.
When I turn on the news, I see a country that's divided. Don't matter what the channel, it always feels one-sided. They tell us that it's us first, then as our country comes unwound, it's time we come together on our hollow ground. Remember 9/11 when we all stood side by side? Americans, not enemies, a country full of pride. They try to force us into boxes, you're either blue, you're red. Instead of fitting in, let's find some common ground instead. One thing that I know to be true, patriots come in red and blue. Yeah, blue. Just because we don't agree, don't mean that we should hate each other. Whatever happened to love one another? Remember 9/11 when we all stood side by side. Americans, not enemies.